KWJJ HD2 Portland, an Odyssey sports station. Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the opening round of the 125th U.S. Open at Oakmont Country Club in Pennsylvania in progress right now. Most of the field has gotten going or already finished for the day. Your leader at this point, J.J. Spawn, 4 under, finished his first round. You got Tristan Lawrence, Sam Burns tied for second at 3 under. Siwoo Kim and Brooks Koepka making a move. They're at 2 under, tied for fourth, along with Sungjae Im and Patrick Reed. And a gaggle of guys all sitting at 1 under as well. Sepp Straka and Jordan Spieth among those at even par so far there on the 4th green. Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final happening tonight in Florida. The defending Cup champion Panthers hosting the Edmonton Oilers. The Panthers leading the series 2-1 are favored on the money line at minus 260. Pre-game getting going over on 910 ESPN Portland at 4:30. Puck drop is at 5 on TNT. And in the NFL, Bengals rookie defensive end Shamar Stewart leaving Cincinnati's mandatory minicamp today amid a contract dispute. He was selected with the 17th overall pick in this year's draft. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt missing work? Insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
The original home of the Herd with Colin Cowherd. Weekdays 9 to noon, 1080 The Fan.
Wake up. Hey, wake up to a happy day.
You have a noon tea time.
Oh my God, you got a hold of that one.
Danny and Dusty.
Sky rockets in flight. Woo! Afternoon delight. Whoop. You guys have it, I think. Afternoon delight.
On U.S. Open Week.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club, the best course in the Northwest for year-round golf. Book your tee time at langdonfarms.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, let's fire it up. Danny and Friends, a Buck edition as the revolving door of this chair seems to continue on. Happy to be here with you today, Danny. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good, man. The sun is out. The allergies are eating me alive. The basketball is immaculate. I can't complain, man.
Excellent.
As much as I will complain a lot in the next 2.5 months as there is no basketball going on. We don't even have the Olympics. That was the thing about last year is we had the Olympics to fall back on.
You had a little bit of
There's a little push
dessert after the
finals. You know, you're like, oh, you know what? We're down for a little bit, but hey, Olympics we're going to get the early qualifiers or the early scrimmages, and then we're off to the races. And It's like, okay, I got basketball to sustain me through late July into August, and then it's a little less painful. But the reality is at most there's 4 NBA games left in the season. At most.
Yep.
And that's like, I like this.
We'll talk a little bit later about whether you think we get 4 more games because we are in a fun position now with the NBA Finals where I don't think many people had much interest because they thought the result would be a foregone conclusion.
Those people are very dumb.
That is clearly not the case, but that's a little bit too sportsy right now. Do you know what happened? I guess it's still sportsy, but crosses over a little bit. 55 years ago today?
No.
The Doc Ellis LSD no-hitter.
Oh.
Are you familiar with this story?
No.
So, this is a doozy. So, this man is...
So this is even more egregious than David Wells, not even hungover, just hammered drunk.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, as the Wikipedia reads, this was June 12th, 1970. He no-hit the Padres 2-0 in the first game of a 2-game doubleheader in San Diego while reportedly under the influence of LSD. After the Pirates had flown to San Diego Thursday the 11th, Ellis visited a friend in Los Angeles and used LSD 2 or 3 times. Thinking it was still Thursday, he took another hit of LSD on Friday at noon, and his friend's girlfriend reminded him at 2 p.m. that he was scheduled to pitch that night. Ellis flew from Los Angeles to San Diego at 3 p.m., arrived at the stadium at 4:30. The game started at 6:05, and he twirled the no-no.
Tripping balls, throwing a no-no.
Yep.
Also, that's a lot of LSD, especially back then.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you could talk about the level that our weed has gotten to now. Like, the stuff they smoked back in the 60s was absolute dog-esque.
And then intensify that on an exponential level?
Yeah, and they're like, do they know what the hell they were doing with LSD back then? You know what I mean? Like, whatever, And so we're not talking not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 hits of LSD.
Ellis said that he threw the no-hitter despite being unable to feel the ball or see the batter or catcher clearly. He also said that his catcher Jerry May wore reflective tape on his fingers, which helped Ellis see his signals. Ellis walked 8 batters. He struck out 6. He was aided by excellent fielding plays by Bill Mazeroski and Matty Alou as well. As he recounted, quote, "I can only remember bits and pieces of the game. I was psyched. I had a feeling of euphoria. I was zeroed on the catcher's glove, but I didn't hit the glove too much. I remember hitting a couple of batters, and the bases were loaded 2 or 3 times. The ball was small sometimes. The ball was large sometimes. Sometimes I saw the catcher. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I tried to stare the hitter down and throw while I was looking at him. I chewed my gum until it turned to powder." They said that I had about 2 or 3 or 4 fielding chances. I remember diving out of the way of a ball that I thought was a line drive. I jumped, but the ball wasn't hit hard, and it never even reached me.
Good God, that man's throwing pitches to a catcher he thought was a minotaur at some point in time. Like, what the hell?
Yep.
I mean, I hate doing this, but like, if people only knew how often professional athletes played on all sorts of substances, it's a lot more than you think. There are a lot of NBA players that play every game absolutely baked out of their mind. I mean, absolutely ripped. And I've got, friends all around the country that cover different teams, work for different teams, and the stories that I hear about some guys, and it's like, I mentioned this the other day when we were talking about Percy Harvin, the whole idea of like, I play better when I'm high. No, you don't.
That is
no,
that,
you
that
don't.
Has to be, I mean, that's something a high person says.
Yes,
that is not cooked into reality.
What was it? Malik Beasley was at All-Star Weekend last year with one of like the big streamers. I can't remember who it was,
like Kai Cenat or something like that.
Somebody like that. Yeah. Aiden Ross or whoever it
sure.
was. What it was, they have all the influencers there, and he was doing a thing in the tunnel. And God, that might have been 2 years ago, but he thinks his stream's turned off, and he looks at the dude. He's like, "All right, dude, let's spark that up." And the streamer looks at him like, "It's still on." He's like, "Oh."
And that's not the first time. That's not the first time he stepped in it either.
No.
If you recall, and I this is one of the most hilarious things when he debuted his Super Cool Bees back tattoo, and there was a bag of weed on the table behind him. He was just trying to show off his terrible tattoo. And if you haven't seen it, I would implore you to Google Michael Beasley tattoo, because it just says across his back Super Cool Bees, and there's a pair of sunglasses hanging from one of the letters.
Yeah, it's like oh yeah, no, this guy's got a black light in his room, 100%. Here, real quick poll: worst tattoo, Super Cool Bees or God's Swill on Jason Tatum?
Oh, I didn't realize. Does he not have an apostrophe?
Oh, he had to get it corrected.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, it said God's Swill.
I'll throw another one in there. Brock Osweiler, the former Arizona State Sun Devil, had "live life to its fullest" inside of his bicep, but they put in, they put in an apostrophe where they shouldn't have, so it was really translated to "live life to it is fullest."
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. I had my high school lacrosse coach, running backs coach. He's the assistant coach now down at Canby. Love him to death. Still one of my favorite humans I've ever one of my most cherished mentors, Craig Schimmel. Just an outstanding dude. If you went to Beaverton, you know Shim. He had what looked like a chemical burn on his arm. That was that was the myth about it. And I remember finally I got up the courage to ask him about it. He's like, "No, it was a griffin tattoo that I had removed." But he had this removed in like the 90s.
Yeah.
When, have you seen Pete Davidson lately?
I know that he's had a bunch of his tattoos removed, but I haven't seen what that looks like.
All of them removed.
Has he?
If I remember right. He said he had over 200.
Yeah.
Because
he was covered.
Well, I mean, again, I'm going to sound like old man shaking fist at cloud right now. I am not anti-tattoo. You guys cannot see my tattoos. My whole upper back is covered.
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, most people don't know that I have them because I am a fat, doughy guy right now who is not in the shape that he was when he got these tattoos, when I used to have my shirt off.
And even if you were, are you going to do this radio with the shirt off? I mean, I guess you can.
Look, if I looked like I did when I was in my 20s, you bleeping right I would. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I would. I would absolutely. I would do that. I would be the shirtless radio guy every day.
Hell yeah.
I am not anti-tattoo at all. But The tattoos younger people get now are so bad.
Yeah.
The rubber stamp tattoos of just random crap with all like these weird. Like, if I see another woman with a feather tattoo just randomly on her arm, I'm gonna just want to wash my mouth out with a revolver. It's just like, why? What? Why? And then there's like 3 other dainty, stupid tattoos and just like random spots on their arm. It's like, look, it's your body, but it looks dumb.
So
I'd rather see somebody with a full sleeve.
My best friend, his brother-in-law is like almost like I would have to call it like a tattoo addict, and because he goes into the shop on a whim when he's bored without anything in mind.
Oh, see, that's
and they have like this. It's essentially like a giant gumball machine there in it. But they give you a token, and you can like get a design out of there. And so he will just put a token in, and whatever comes out, he gets tattooed that day. So one time it's a cactus drinking a margarita. Another time it's like an angel playing on a cloud. And like it doesn't matter. And he's got like 60 of them.
See, I one of my buddies owns a tattoo shop. He was not tatted up. Well, that's a different story. He had one tattoo that. He came from a community, I'll just say in southern Utah.
Okay.
If you get that reference, he had that covered up because he came out of that community and realized that's the wrong way to live life.
Okay.
But he's now fully tatted because, again, he owns a tattoo shop. And he has told me so many horror stories about just insane things he has seen. And it's just like, look, my tattoos that I got, I thought about them for a long time. But I got them done in the seediest, shadiest places on the face of the planet. I have tattoos that were done in Afghanistan. I have tattoos that were done in Iraq. I have tattoos that were done in Kyrgyzstan.
And in those places, were they still tattoo parlors, so to speak, or was it random Joe with like a jerry-rigged pen and like prison style?
So I've got there's 2 lions, one on each shoulder blade, and those were done by a Russian expat who defected from the Russian army, or the Soviet army, excuse me, in the 80s in Afghanistan.
Jeez, all right.
So he opened up a pizza parlor / tattoo parlor inside what was once a Russian munitions depot.
Okay.
So it's this big warehouse
Hell of a
building,
business model.
And he built a wood-fired like pizza grill into this place, and then he has like a little tattoo shop.
Okay.
And the pizza ingredients all come from his farm that are right there on top of it. Still to this day, the best pizza I've ever had in my entire life. It was goat cheese pizza. Ooh. Everything from scratch from the farm and garden.
Okay.
I mean, just unreal good.
Look at that.
So, smash some pizza, get a little something in my stomach. I had the Russian Sprite.
Okay.
Which is like Mexican Coke. It's
sure.
like sugarcane, tasty. Had that to sip on. The problem was, so each one of these tattoos is probably 8-9 inches tall and solid black. He did not have a fill-in needle. So it took 13 hours to do it with an outline needle. But here's where I was dumb, because I was 19.
Agreed to do that 13 hours?
Well, number one, I did it straight through on my day off.
Okay.
I fell asleep during it.
Yeah, I would imagine. I guess you wouldn't have to, but that would probably be preferable if you could.
Yeah, no, I mean, for whatever reason, he was shocked like how little it bled. He was like, dude, it was healed up in like 3-4 days.
Okay.
Still to this day, he's the only reason I let him do what he did. And so if you look at both of them, they're not stenciled.
Okay.
They're freehand.
Okay.
So I let a former Russian expat defector who owned a tattoo / pizza parlor in Afghanistan freehand on my back. And the reason
literally behind your back.
Literally the only reason I did this. Do you ever see the movie Red Dragon? The Hannibal spinoff?
Was it a prequel or was it the
prequel?
Yeah. Long time ago. I don't remember the details.
I think it was Ralph Fiennes.
Okay.
He had the giant red dragon tattoo on him.
Right.
This guy did one on himself.
How?
In a mirror, freehand, and it was incredible.
I can't even imagine like the flexibility to do that.
Did it on his neck, down to his chest, across his whole stomach, and then down both legs. And it was, look, it's not my tattoo, but it was, like, it's not my kind of thing, but it was so incredibly well done.
Well, but to do that, like, I mean, that's like I don't know, I don't want to say it's like Leonardo in the Sistine Chapel, but every other tattoo you do is on a canvas that's in front of you.
Yeah.
You're doing that all reverse and behind you and or reverse in a mirror. I mean, I can't imagine the just incredible dexterity and expertise.
It was immaculate, and it moved with him. It was so dope, and I was blown away by it. And I was like, you know what, dude? I trust you. And it's still to this day that those tattoos are 20. 22 years old,
Uh-huh.
21 years old, they don't look remotely that old. Like it's like they're still the best done tattoos on my back. And
Well,
it's like,
and it's also cool when that like puts you back to a moment in time.
oh yeah,
you
and
know?
it was $150.
Sounds like a steal of
100,
deal.
$150 for 13 hours of studio time.
Not bad.
No, dude, that's that's probably $1,000 tattoo at least.
Yeah, with that amount of time committed, I'd imagine so.
So, but yeah, no, again, I'm not anti-tattoo at all, but I thought about what I was going to do for a very long time. And what, like, the very first tattoo I got was the day that I turned 18.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an outline that I ended up getting filled out in various places around. So I shouldn't say every tattoo I've had done in CD Place. The first tattoo I had done was in Portland.
Yeah.
And then, but I had it expanded and filled in all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, not anti-tattoo, but for the love of God, don't do the rubber stamp tattoos. They're just terrible.
I think we can both agree on that. And that is Hot Tattoo Talk on Danny and Friends. We do need to get to some sports things today. Round 1 of the U.S. Open out at Oakmont. It is absolute carnage, as people expected. The golf course getting drier, these scores getting worse. We'll get into that. Have a couple NFL things to get into, a chicken and egg scenario in the AFC North, as well as Jim Harbaugh being Jim Harbaugh. But first, do we have a new favorite in the NBA Finals? Danny and Friends, 1080 The Fan.
Hello, sports fans, and
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Lots going on here in the break. Danny and friends. Danny's taking his shirt off. We're talking about our golf game.
It happened.
Things are happening. Also happening out at Oakmont and Albatross today.
A little Albie.
We just watched Patrick Reed put one in with a 3-wood from 286.
Yeah, I just cannot fathom. The carry on this thing is probably 270, 275. 3-wood off the fairway. And it's just like, I did the TrackMan stuff out at Redtail before the show yesterday. My 3-wood was like, 220, 225. I was feeling pretty damn good.
Yeah,
I
sure.
was like, and that's,
I would.
I was like, all right, that's a good distance for that. I'll take that. This man just simply picked this thing up off the carpet, almost 300, and dropped it in the bucket. And the funny thing is, he's 300 yards out, so he has no idea, and he's looking there with his palms up to the sky going, did he points down like, that go in?
He's almost doing like a shrug. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it? Are you sure?
Yeah.
And sure enough, there it was. Do need to get this in. I'm going to fall on the sword. Last time I was in this chair, even though the paper's right in front of me, went right over the Fan Golf Classic promo. We're now less than 2 weeks away. It's coming up Tuesday, June 24th. There are still foursomes available, so hop in there.
In the morning only.
In the morning only. The afternoon is sold out. It's the 11th annual, brought to you by local Toyota dealers. It's out at Langdon Farms, as it always is. Also brought to you this year by Henderson and Daughter Windows and Doors, Philbrook Law, Accident and Injury Lawyers. Matt's Barbecue is going to be out there. It's going to be a good time. I still haven't figured out what I'm going to be doing that day for prime time. I think there may be some like best of action going on, but I might be having a conversation with the boss if we can just kind of go national that day.
There you go.
Let everybody come on out to the course.
It's a good push. It's because we want everybody out there to partake in all of the things that happen on the golf course.
Enough golf talk for now, though, because we have buried the lead. We got a series in the NBA Finals.
We do.
The Pacers still not favorites. That's a little bit stunning. They are a 2-1 underdog, even though they have the 2-1 lead now. But last night's game seemed like it was going in the direction of the first two game scripts early on, in that the Thunder felt like they were dialed in, that they were collected, they were forcing some turnovers. And then we saw the Pacers do what the Pacers do. They started chipping away. They started making adjustments. And
before TJ McConnell happened.
And before you knew it, they were in total control with about 3 minutes to go in that ball game and pulling away in it. And we should not continue to be stunned, because we've seen them do this now. Once someone shows you who they are, believe them. We've seen them series after series, deficit after deficit. They keep wiping it away. But now they're still underdogs, which to me is a little bit shocking because they have a 1-game lead. But we're here, and I think finally the basketball nation is going to wake up and start watching this series. I don't care about the ratings, the whole small market thing. Like, don't watch it if you don't want to watch it. But we have a great finals brewing now, because the team nobody thought could do it, the team that was the second worst underdog in finals history, is now leading 3 games in.
Yeah, here's the crazy thing. The Pacers have never trailed in a series in the playoffs this season. So now with a 2-1 lead, they now have the lead again. So they've either been tied or ahead the entire playoffs. This is the reason why, not this particularly, but this Pacers team, you're seeing why, and this isn't me tooting my own horn, I'm giving the Pacers the credit that most people were not giving them. In that they were not happy to be there. They were not the plucky underdog. When Ortner came in, he asked me, what is the path for the Pacers to win this series?
I asked you that.
Was it you that asked me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I've been through 9 co-hosts in 10
like
days.
I said, revolving door. I know I'm not holding that part against you.
But it was the path was win game 1, and when they got back,
you said steal one of the first 2.
Yep, and if you get one and put them on the front foot, get it done. And then when you get home, take care of business. And what you saw from them, OKC jumps out in the early lead. I thought the Pacers outplayed them in the first quarter, but OKC started making some shots. TJ McConnell comes in that game, 5 steals. I mean, just disruptive as hell, and just an absolute demon for what they needed, all that energy. Ben Mathurin comes in, scores unbelievably well, unbelievably efficient, gets 27 on the night. But you see the Pacers flip this game on its head with a 40-point second quarter. And everything that comes out of this game is kind of like what you would expect this Pacers team to do. We'll get more into this into the number side of this because we do have a guest coming on here in just a little bit.
That's right. Yeah, I wanted to mention that. We just hopped right into the basketball talk, and we'll ask Kirk what he thinks about how these finals are going to play out. But we're going to talk to Kirk Henderson of Mavs Moneyball. Lots going on. Maybe the most in the news team in the NBA this year between the Luka trade and getting the number one.
Of the NBA.
It's the epicenter of NBA news this year. Now the Knicks want their coach. That's not going to be happening either. But we have plenty to discuss with Kirk Henderson that is coming up on the other side of the break. But first, we get to Schultz with this Sports Center update.
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Vulcan Design and Construction. Check out their award-winning outdoor living designs or schedule your free design consultation at vulcandc.com. First on The Fan, the first round of the 125th U.S. Open at Oakmont Country Club in progress right now. The leader so far, already finished up for the day, is J.J. Spawn at 4 under. In second place, actually Tristan Thomas, Sam Burns and Sung Jae Im all tied at 3 under for second place. Siwoo Kim, Brooks Koepka, and Bud Cauley tied at 2 under for fifth. A lot tied at 1 under as well. Looking around the rest of the leaderboard, seeing Adam Schenk at +1, Squatty Scheffler and John Rahm both at +1 through the day as well. Later on tonight, Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final happening in Florida. The defending Cup champions, Panthers, hosting the Edmonton Oilers, and the Panthers do lead that series 2-1. They're favored on the money line for tonight, -260 at this point. Pre-game getting going over on 910 ESPN, Portland at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 p.m. on TNT. And good news for the Mariners. They've lost 11 of their last 14, so they need some. Outfielder Luke Raley making a rehab start in Tacoma tonight after missing 6 weeks with an oblique strain. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schultz from the George McCoy and Warren Allen Sports Desk. Curtain missing work. Insurance companies acting like jerks. Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
The Fan is live on YouTube.
consultation.
CCB number 68623.
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back to Danny and Friends, a Danny and Buck edition today. The NBA Finals now 2-1 in favor of the Pacers, but we will take a brief diversion from that as we got to talk about the epicenter of news in the NBA this season, and that would be in Dallas, Texas. We're joined now by Kirk Henderson. You can find him at Kirk Serious Face on Twitter or on X. He's from Mavs Moneyball. Kirk, how are you today?
Guys, I'm well. I just got out of prison where I didn't have access to the internet, and I'm just learning all of these horrible things about the Dallas Mavericks for the first time. How are you guys?
We're excellent. Let me get you started on this. We will talk about the Mavericks real quick, but I assume you've been following this NBA Finals. You taking the Pacers or the Thunder at this point?
I am taking the Pacers. I do not like the Thunder. They are, what is it? We can't have like Gen Alpha NBA champions. I'm not here for it.
Fair enough.
Kirk, obviously, you and I have been talking through everything for the last couple months. You were the first person I texted when the Shams hack happened with Luka. When all of this stuff went down and things got as bad as they did, I told my former co-host Dusty and now my boss, I go, man, I got a lot of friends in Dallas, man. I don't know if things are gonna come back like the way this feels real in a way that I don't think has happened outside of a team leaving a city. What is the general feeling now, 5 months removed from the trade and the NBA draft lottery awarding the Dallas Mavericks the golden ticket that is Cooper Flag?
Going to be very interested to see how things are when the season kicks off. I will say that Cooper Flag didn't generate quite the buzz you might expect, largely because I think Dallas area basketball fans, at least NBA Mavericks fans, were pretty burnt out on the season. I pulled over my car. I wasn't even covering the lottery. I was heading to a kid's baseball practice. I pulled out of my car and I see a guy with a Jason Kidd shirt on, and I was just, hey, the Mavericks won the lottery. And he looks at me and he goes, huh? And I was like, you have a Mavs shirt on. He goes, oh, yeah. Oh, that's nice. And it's just sort of a different feel. The team is I think they'll win some fans back, getting the number one overall pick. And frankly, we just have to be quite candid about this. A white American basketball player going number one hasn't happened in like half a century. And that in itself will generate a different kind of buzz. I think that they have some hope in getting some people back, but compared, to moving on from Luka Doncic, the sort of silent freeze out of Dirk Nowitzki, which has gone on, there's a lot of people that really are say they're done with the team.
When you look at that in kind of that mentality, this is the crux of the argument that Dusty and I have kind of been having, and not an argument, discussion. Is it savable? Like, is it just a matter of if the Mavs start winning again, the majority will come back? Or was that Luka trade such a stake in the heart of the fan base that this might not be something that's redeemable for an entire generation?
I think people will come back. Sports trudges on. The Dallas Metroplex is an enormous market. My favorite was when one of the Slovenians that I talk with regularly came to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and he pointed out that the Dallas-Fort Worth area was bigger than his country in terms of just size, not to mention people. So I think you'll get a fair number of folks back, but it's going to take Mavericks fans a while to understand this. I really enjoy Cooper Flag, but the likelihood of Cooper Flag being a top 5 NBA player with how basketball is played right now, I don't see it at the moment. That doesn't mean I'm right. It's just a different path because, look at the NBA Finals. It's led by 2 ball-handling playmakers, not defensive power forwards. So understanding that the likelihood that the Mavericks will have a top 5 NBA player at any point in the let's just say short to medium future, 5 to 10 years, it's just people are not. It's going to take them a while to understand that. So the team might be okay, but contender status is a far way away. I mean, the Mavericks, it took them a very long time, 7 full years, to become contender status with a top-tier player. So it's a different sell job. I mean, the NBA trudges on so many games, so people they'll find ways to fill up the stadium. I think the changes in the TV deal helped last year. There was a lot of people watching on antennas. That was a change for the positive. There was a lot more access to games last year. So I think that may end up helping the Mavericks in the long term, but in the short term, it was tough. I mean, I know the area around the arena took a big dip business-wise following February 1st on. I know they weren't really able to sell out, even though they kept recording sellouts. But I think you'll see an uptick. It's going to be different.
We're talking to Kirk Henderson here of Mavs Moneyball. You can also listen to the Pod Maverick podcast. I understand that fans may come back in the future, but something that does maybe have a timeline on it. I'm curious about Nico Harrison's future here, because there was so much vitriol and so much backlash after the Luka trade. Now they get this huge boost with getting the number 1 pick in the lottery. It feels like there's maybe a breath of life or resuscitation happening for Nico with that news, but how much does he have to do and how quickly in order to keep his gig? Because if you believe the reports, the ownership was upset with what the reaction was. They didn't realize it was going to be that severe, and he's talking about a 3 and 4 year plan with Anthony Davis coming on board. So what does his leash look like, and how much latitude does he have at this point?
I am curious about that, because I feel that the situation in Dallas is not too dissimilar from the situation when Neil O'Shea ran the Blazers, in that I feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that O'Shea had a lot of leeway to do what he wanted to do. There was not a lot of ownership pushback. That is absolutely the case in Dallas, where everything that has happened, including obviously this Luka trade, received zero owner pushback. I think that will continue because the current governor, Patrick Dumont, who works for the Adelson family, doesn't know anything about basketball. He's trusting the person who he gave an extension to see this through. They would have to start pretty badly, I think, in order for like a real change to happen. They should fire him right now, because the Mavericks are currently, when they draft Cooper Flagg, their salary cap, and this is where I hate being, like, in order to be a modern NBA fan, you also have to have a minor in accounting. And the Mavericks will be over the NBA's first apron of their salary cap, which is pretty punitive in its penalties. And they don't have a guard that is functional on the roster right now. They signed a journeyman G League guy named Brandon Williams. He is on a 1-year deal, but he is their only guard that is capable of distributing the basketball. And I'm not being facetious. You go look through the roster. They have a young man by the name of Jaden Hardy, who I will simply say that basketball doesn't seem to be his calling, which is a bold statement about an NBA player, but trust me when you watch him. Tough for a guy. But and those are kind of the only 2 guys that could count. And they have so many forwards and bigs. And, like I mentioned earlier, the teams that are the best right now seem to have a dynamic playmaker. And Dallas just doesn't have that. I mean, Jason Kidd went on the DLLS All Cities podcast and sort of alluded to, Cooper Flagg being a bit of a playmaker, because he is. He's a very talented player, but he's also 18, and he's not a guard. So they have a lot of work to get the roster in a real functional order, because it is a talented roster, but it is not a roster that makes sense, because and again, I'm talking too much, I apologize. They built a team for Luka Doncic and then traded Luka Doncic.
Yeah. No, look, Kirk, we brought you on here to talk. And one thing I want to ask you is the guy tasked with coaching that roster, and Jason Kidd, a guy who you love, I'm sure, is one of the targets of the New York Knicks. And it sounds like even though the Knicks have been turned down at multiple turns by multiple organizations for the formal asking process to interview a coach, that is not going to dissuade old Jim Dolan in New York from pursuing a coach who may be under contract, including Jason Kidd. At least that's some of the intel that's out there. When you look at that and you look at the where the organization's at right now, what Kidd said or did or didn't do publicly following the Luka trade, and kind of looking at this roster going forward, is this a time where you're kind of hoping the organization's like, no, it's okay, you can talk to Jason Kidd?
I think there was some confusion about whether or not the Mavericks really wanted to keep him. There's some line of thinking that I got from one media member that said, if Kidd moves on, Nico Harrison can then have his own pick of a coach and be able to point to maybe any early bumps in the 2025-26 season as well. We got a new coach. So let's just give it some time. Also further would allow Nico Harrison to further consolidate his power because there are reports, Tim McMahon said Jason Kidd was not a fan of the Dallas Mavericks letting go of now trainer of the New York Knicks, Casey Smith, who was with the organization for close to 20 years. Like he was Jason Kidd's trainer when Kidd was a Maverick back in 2011. So I think there's some areas of friction there, but Jason Kidd, as we all know, like he's not just a point guard on the floor. His ability to sort of see where things are heading, both institutionally for the other organizations he's been a part of, is really quite impressive. I, for a short while, thought he was going to get out from under this Dallas situation and be able to fully pass the buck on to Nico Harrison and, essentially feeling like Jesse in Breaking Bad where he's yelling about Walter White saying, he can't keep getting away with this. Because Kidd very much was a part of the trade. He just was. And, Harrison can sit there and say that he wasn't. There's enough reporting to know that it was, Harrison's final call, but this was made by this getting to that point, Kidd played a part in it. So I'm very curious to see what happens next. It seems so unlikely. But again, Kidd is a master at coming up with new strategies. Everyone remembers when he was coach of the Brooklyn Nets and he knocked the drink on the floor very purposely when he didn't have a timeout in order to cause a stoppage in play. I'm sort of hoping secretly for a very weird exit just for the what do you want to call it, the novelty of the situation.
Yeah, the theater of it all. And if we're talking Breaking Bad references and memes, I can only imagine Nico Harrison as Walter White saying, "I am the danger," and Mavs fans believing him. We're talking with Kirk Henderson here of Mavs Moneyball and Pod Maverick. Want to dig a little bit deeper on what's going on out in Dallas. Can you hang with us for another segment, Kirk?
Absolutely.
Perfect. We will do that coming up. Danny and Friends, 1080 The Fan.
We just finished our roof
U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Now, this is my kind of good weather jam. Love a Bill Withers song on a day like today. It was a lovely day for Mavericks fans on Lottery Day. They draw the number one pick. We were talking to Kirk Henderson of Mavs Moneyball. You can also listen to him on the Pod Maverick podcast. Follow him at Kirk Serious Face on Twitter. And Kirk, speaking of lovely days, as much as that lottery result benefited the Mavs fan base, just based on your feel, how many Mavs fans think it was legit versus how many Mavs fans think that it was in fact rigged in their favor?
I would say the hardcore fans really understand how ridiculously weird and difficult it would be to rig it in their favor.
Yes.
Once you know the sort of stories in the room, particularly with how nervous every other team was about all the various teams that moved up. The Mavericks, for example, had that coin flip with the Chicago Bulls to kind of determine actual placement, even though the odds were the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Mavericks had gotten the different coin flip, the Bulls would have gotten the number one overall pick. But casual fans definitely think this thing was super rigged.
Kirk, as it pertains to the Dallas Mavericks and the NBA at large, a lot of people expect if Giannis Antetokounmpo does or doesn't opt out, there's still going to be a significant amount of movement in the NBA this offseason because of the way the CBA is and because of the way the books are with so many teams. And you alluded to the Mavericks being a team that you're heavily loaded in the front court, whether it's going to be the addition of Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, P.J. Washington. Najee Marshall is now somehow a guard. I don't know how the hell that happened, but here we are. But you look at this Mavericks team, they're going to be a part of transactions one way or the other. What do you kind of expect the Mavs' role to be coming into the draft night, and going into free agency, and the player movement that might actually take place around the league?
Well, the two key people that are probably the likely candidates for a move in some form are either P.J. Washington or Daniel Gafford, who are on the last years of respective deals, both pretty reasonable contracts. I think Gafford is in that hilarious sweet spot where he's paid just enough to be like, oh, this guy's really, really good. But then if you give him more, you're going to realize that he doesn't defensive rebound. P.J. Washington is almost a different guy where you look at his baseline stats and you see someone who is pretty good. I think given the right circumstances, P.J. Washington could continue to blossom to being a real player. Before Luka Doncic got hurt, I was sort of under the impression that his role would be that where he might end up on an all-defensive team, which is very funny because he came to the Mavericks just as a bit of a ball of clay. You could see the tools. He had some explosions, but he didn't play much defense in Charlotte. And I found myself very impressed by his game and his various skill sets. He developed a post-up game, or used a post-up game quite often this past season. And he's just an interesting guy, but I think the Mavericks could be persuaded to part with either one of them. He's much less effective as Anthony Davis continues his constant career-long charade of insisting that he's a power forward just because he wants to shoot jumpers even though he can't hit the broadside of a barn, and is really a classic center. Him and PJ sort of cancel each other out. So that's sort of the two most likely guys that I see as trade candidates. And I there's something there somewhere with a team. I just between what Sean said about, draft night all the way through free agency being pretty wild, I've never been very good at playing with the trade machine. I'm not Colin Sexton from the Utah Jazz doesn't particularly move me. Oh, and he also happens to make more than both of those players, so that doesn't actually help Dallas. It's a tricky situation.
Kirk, when it comes to personnel moves, I was interested in something you made my ears perk up when you talked to Danny about, and I also saw reports after the lottery was won that right away that their plan was to draft Flagg as opposed to try and move the pick for assets. What is the mesh point like for Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd if he was surprised by the Luka deal and this roster is undergoing a changeover, so to speak? How much are those two hands talking to each other, and who's driving the ship on these decisions?
It's a really good question. I think at this point we have to assume Harrison is driving all of the decisions, which might not have been the case when those two joined the Dallas Mavericks in the 2021 offseason, where it was largely assumed that Harrison was being brought in to be the face to help Cuban get his foot out of his mouth which seems to have happened for the previous 10 years of free agent decisions. Instead, now Nico Harrison is really the guy with sort of holding all the power, and I think Kidd gets a little bit of influence. Jason Kidd was responsible for the JaVale McGee signing. The Mavericks brought him on several years ago, cut him almost immediately, and he is actually still on their books right now, if you'd believe it. So I really think Harrison has most of the say here. Though, according to Tim McMahon, it was Patrick Dumont, the owner, essentially stepping in and saying, we're drafting this Cooper Flagg guy, really putting an end to rumors before it could begin, because I'm not sure if you guys read Zach Lowe's or heard Zach Lowe talking about the lottery. Teams were openly making fun of Nico Harrison in the lottery. Harrison wasn't there because he's gone into a bunker after his last press availability to end the year, and nobody's heard from him since. So you have to assume he's just kind of operating out of a position. I don't want to say fear or panic because the man is uber confident, but he's operating in a position of secrecy with this exception of Flagg.
Well, Kirk, we've gotten this far, and we haven't mentioned the Kyrie Irving of it all yet. Kyrie obviously was brought into Dallas under the pretenses and his constraints of his own making, and Kyrie really kind of had a rebirth of his career. And prior to having a devastating injury, leading up to the Luka injury, it looked like the Mavs might have had an ideal pairing and running mate for Luka. But now he's going to be a guy who's going to get a big contract, and he's probably not back until January or February next year. When you look at this Mavs outlook, going into just next season alone, I know it's hard to make those machinations all come together without knowing what moves will or won't happen. But when you look at this Mavs team, what is the goal and or expectation for them when we're sitting here at this time next year?
Ooh, a year from now, things are going to be wildly different. I fully believe the organization thinks that this roster, with the talent on it, should be a fringe contender. That's really the way they talk. I don't see it, largely because I understand how basketball is played, and I get the feeling that the Dallas Mavericks organization just is kind of lost their way these days, talking about Harrison repeatedly referring to defense winning championships. Well, how's that working out for the Oklahoma City Thunder right now? How did that work out for the Boston Celtics last year? It's a very difficult position to be in as sort of a fan, advocate, media person, whatever I am, because it requires looking in the sky and saying, boy, that sky's purple today, despite it being blue. It's very frustrating. And so I think they're going to find out the hard way. The team will be night to night competitive because Jason Kidd, one thing about him is guys play hard for him. The Mavericks gutted their way to that 10th spot despite not having really – so many guys were hurt. The Kyrie situation really took the wind out of the sails because I think the Mavericks might have been in play for Kevin Durant this summer had Kyrie not gotten hurt. And that was sort of Nico's plan, was to put together a team like that. So it makes all this very – they're going to find out quickly because the NBA's Western Conference is simply no joke. The teams below them in the standings, so I would argue almost every team is getting better in some way, shape, or form. And while Dallas, again, is talented, I don't see how the pieces fit.
Fantastic insights from Kirk Henderson. Kirk, we really appreciate you hanging with us for a couple segments here. You can catch Kirk's work over on Mavs Moneyball. You can listen to him at the Pod Maverick podcast and follow him at Kirk Serious Face on Twitter. Kirk, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it, brother.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, Kirk.
Really insightful stuff from Kirk there, and a fascinating time to just be a voyeur for the Mavericks franchise right now.
I wanted to have him on for a couple of weeks, and he bothered me the day. He's like, hey, I thought you wanted to have me on, jerk. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I got to get you on here. Then because I want to get him in because Dallas has been the epicenter of the NBA. Yep. Whether it's Luka, whether it's Kyrie, whether it's Nico, whether it's now Cooper Flagg, and now, like you kind of heard him allude to, the Kevin Durant of it all. Like, they're going to be,
and I hadn't even considered that. That's fascinating.
Well, I mean,
and it may not be under consideration anymore, but
there's another teammate that Kevin Durant played with in Brooklyn, not named Kyrie Irving, who's in Los Angeles with the Clippers, and James Harden. And don't be surprised if all of a sudden you hear the Clippers start popping up in talks for Kevin Durant.
That would be a very Clippersy move, wouldn't it?
they are wanting to keep it going, and the Harden and KD are trying to show that pairing can work, and it's just, but the Mavs, even if they're not going to be a player for KD, or if Giannis asks out, like, be a part of that, they've got, like you mentioned, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, like, they've got pieces that multiple teams are like, hey, you've got 11 billion guys in your front court, and you don't have a single guy on your roster who can dribble, pass, or shoot who's healthy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Kyrie is, like, he's not going to be back until
a while.
February.
It was a late season injury.
It was like, and that's if everything, ship shape, everything's good to go.
Right,
like,
and he's aging too. It's not like it's you'd expect him to come back even like the player he was necessarily.
And that's the question about this. And the Mavs are going to play a huge part. The NBA draft is now less than 2 weeks away. Don't be surprised if you see the Mavs involved in a lot of stuff. So that's part of the reason I want to have them on, because as we press forward over the next 13 days, I'm going to have some more folks from around the league to hop in and kind of give some information and intel about what they're all kind of doing. And you see this spider web that is going to get quite big for this summer.
Fascinating stuff to monitor as we move forward. But it is U.S. Open week here on The Fan. We got to dig into what's been going on in Oakmont and the carnage that the course is providing for the golfers out there. We'll get into plenty more NBA talk too, as well as Jim Harbaugh being Jim Harbaugh. That's all coming up in hour number 2. Danny and Friends, 1080 The Fan.
No time for a
An Odyssey Sports Station. Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the opening round of the 125th U.S. Open at Oakmont Country Club in Pennsylvania in progress right now. The leader still J.J. Spaun. He's already finished up, one of the earliest golfers of the day, but he is at 4 under par. Thriston Lawrence, Sung Jae Im, both at 3 under. Siwoo Kim, Brooks Koepka, Sam Burns, and Patrick Reed, along with Matthew Pavone, all tied for 5th. at 2 under. You got about 11 or 12 golfers sitting at 1 under par. Jordan Spieth even, along with Scotty Scheffler at 1 over. John Rahm also at 1 over as well. Both of them are on the 7th right now. On to hockey. Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals happening tonight in Florida. The defending Cup champion Panthers hosting the Edmonton Oilers. The Panthers lead that series 2-1, and they are favored on the money line at -260. Pregame getting going over on 910 ESPN Portland at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 p.m. on TNT. And in the NFL, Bengals rookie defensive end Shamar Stewart leaving Cincinnati's minicamp today amid a contract dispute after being selected with the 17th overall pick in this year's draft. And more sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work? Insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
It's back. The 11th annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms Golf Club happens Tuesday, June 24th. Presented by your local Toyota dealers. Reserve your foursome now at 1080thefan.com. The U.S. Open is in Pennsylvania this week.
It's the Steelers.
With 175 bunkers, there's plenty of sand to find at Oakmont.
Found anything yet? Nothing yet, sir. How about you? Not a thing, sir.
This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club, the best course in the Northwest for year-round golf. Book your tee time at langdonfarms.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080.
What about you guys? We ain't found shit.
The Fan.
No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Danny and friends here on 1080 The Fan. Neglected to mention earlier, Jordan Schultz with us today. Schultz, how we doing, brother?
I'm all right. Traffic sucked on the way in.
Traffic did suck on the way in. I'm not used to having to deal with that because ordinarily I'm a Beaverton man, but have been down in the Newburgh-Wilsonville area
where
like you guys.
Where are you coming from?
Yeah, Wilsonville, same as you, Danny, Newburgh. So you're like 20 minutes longer than me every day, but it obviously...
Should we have carpooled today?
Yeah.
Maybe, actually. Yeah, that was...
The Buck is literally just around the corner from me right now.
What the hell? Why didn't... I mean, I was 2 hours earlier than you
It turns
guys,
out
but-
there's quite a bit of us that are migrating out there now.
Are there others?
Fish lives a block away from...
That's right.
I always joke about a block, but Fish actually does live the next street up.
Yeah.
We got a couple of folks in sales live out in the Sherwood area. I was
Okay.
like, oh, so there's more of us out here. So we're migrating down to the south. I want to say though, on the bump back, these Spaceballs,
Yeah.
a lot of momentum over the last couple of days because it's got its release period now. Summer of 2027 is when we're supposed to get the new Spaceballs.
Okay.
Mel Brooks is indeed reprising the role of Yogurt.
How old is he?
98 years old. He will be 99, and I think we looked up the other day. He will be 99 in 2 weeks.
Is that a safe thing to do?
But have you seen him in like a red carpets and stuff like that?
He
He's
doesn't
made some
sound
appearances.
99.
He's still all there.
Man, that's amazing. Good
Like,
for him.
I mean, Mel Brooks might be my favorite director writer ever, and I know
he's a genius.
But like, whether it's Blazing Saddles, Robin Hood Men in Tights, Young Frankenstein, it doesn't matter. Spaceballs, some of my favorite movies of all time. The satirical movies like that are just so my jam. There probably hasn't been a movie like this far out that I've been this excited about probably in my adult life.
Ooh, that's a big claim there. I'm trying to think. For me, it might have been Top Gun Maverick. That was
Up there.
That was the one recently where I'm like, it was such a part of my childhood and nostalgia, and like was so iconic that I'm like, when I heard that was coming out, the first thing you think is, oh, don't screw this up. And then as it starts to gain some traction, you hear some things about it, you're like, I think it might be good. And
The first Transformers, I came home on leave.
Ooh,
and
okay.
we went and saw that. I think it was 2008, and I remember we did it on it was a Thursday night, like when they started doing the Thursday night openings, and we were hanging out at Sports Page in Beaverton, and they're like, hey, there's a showing at Bridgeport, and Bridgeport, I think it just opened, and we get there, and there's a line around, and there's people in like cosplays, like there's one dude that was in a Optimus Prime cosplay. There was like a cardboard box that it folded up on him.
It transformed.
Like he went down on the ground and it turned into like
I've seen little kids' Halloween costumes like that. It's so rad when you can pull that off.
I was like, I mean, that's pretty nerdy, but damn, that's cool. And
it's commitment.
I remember there's 2 movie scenes that I was in on opening night that will forever live rent free. When Optimus Prime transforms for the first time, they did the super in depth one. The whole crowd lost it. And then Avengers Endgame when the portals open back.
Have not seen it.
Oh, buddy. How have you not seen that?
The comic universes is just it's a blind spot for me.
Not your jam, huh? Did you not grow up like, because you and I are roughly the same age?
So
like,
I mean, I guess for me, the stuff I grew up on, it wasn't so much those guys. It was like I was a lot of Ninja Turtles, and I was a lot like.
What about X-Men?
No, not really X-Men either.
You weren't the Saturday morning cartoon X-Men, G.I. Joe?
No, I mean, I think I was more definitely G.I. Joe.
Okay.
I did a lot of G.I. Joe, but like that's kind of, I mean, I remember getting into Karate Kid, and I remember I'm trying to think of like the other things that would have replaced it. I mean, I did, all the Nicktoon stuff with Doug and Rugrats and stuff like that, but I did some He-Man, I did some Thundercats, but didn't really get into the universe that's being
the Marvel universe.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's not because I don't not have interest, but I also feel like since I didn't grow up on it, I'm like, do I need to dive in now? I don't know. I've heard it's fantastic.
How many Marvel movies have you seen in general?
Only. I can say with absolute certainty, the only superhero movies I have seen of any variety are the Christopher Nolan Batmans. That's it.
Really?
I have not seen Spider-Man. I haven't seen any Superman. I haven't seen.
So no Tobey Maguire, no Andrew Garfield?
Nope, none of them.
No Spider.
Not a single one.
Buddy, you're missing out.
I mean, I know about like what the upside down kiss in Spider-Man. That was like a big thing.
But you're missing like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Come on, man.
No, again, blind spot. No idea. Maybe. I'm not aware of what I'm missing, and like I'm just blissfully unaware. But if I should be aware, then I'll be anxious that I'm not watching these things.
I'm putting a list together for you.
Fair enough. You tell me what's going to be at the top of that list. I do want to get into. We'll talk a little U.S. Open here in a second, but I want to wrap up a little conversation that we just had with Kirk of Mavs Moneyball, Kirk Henderson, talking about how Dallas fits in the NBA landscape right now, because we mentioned two key figures, one who probably isn't coming to Dallas now in Kevin Durant. I'm curious now just where things sit. Obviously, things shift like the winds at sea, but with where Kevin Durant's camp is and the teams that could use or want or pull the trigger on him, how do you see this playing out? How soon of a timeline do you see this operating on? Like, what does your spidey sense tell you in the superhero sense?
Sham Strong of ESPN had a report out just a little bit ago, not really qualifying a lot, but saying there's momentum around a Kevin Durant deal, which I have heard is indeed the case. And as it stands right now, I would put Minnesota as the front runner. I still don't think that's the path that Minnesota should go down, because I think they need more creation necessarily than shot making, but Kevin Durant's gravity and floor spacing will certainly make things easier for Ant Edwards. There's no doubt about that. But there are still some teams that are kind of sitting around waiting for Giannis. And I think those are kind of the Houstons of the world that are just kind of like, all right, and the New Yorks of the world are kind of sitting there like hoping that still happens. Because I don't think Houston is going to, as much as they're a quote-unquote player for Kevin Durant, I don't think he's going to end up there because their timelines are just so far apart and how young the rest of that roster is. It doesn't. They aren't title ready yet.
So you don't think they're quote-unquote a Kevin Durant away?
No, I think Minnesota's probably your front runner. Heat fans will tell you that they have a chance. They don't. They don't have the necessary capital to get this done. Nobody gives a damn about Jaime Jaquez or Nikola Jovic as part of this. Because the thing is, the Heat want to keep all their good things and not give up anything that matters. So tell me if you've heard this story before.
Who doesn't?
But I think a team to watch as far as like a dark horse or wild card and all this is the Los Angeles Clippers.
Okay.
Like that's the team I think that is sitting out there waiting to make another big move, and Ballmer has shown that he has the capacity and the willingness to do it over and over and over again. So whether or not it's the right idea, Kevin Durant and James Harden, that pairing seems to circle back around pretty regularly. But as it pertains to the Timberwolves, the framework of that deal is going to be Rudy Gobert, probably one of the young kids, their draft capital this year. But it is kind of funny to see Rudy Gobert and Kevin Durant traded again.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, the other key figure that came up with Kirk was Jason Kidd, and that's a really interesting case because, as you guys are talking, like, just because they said no, as in the Mavericks said no to the Knicks about permission, doesn't mean Kidd couldn't want to go there, and there couldn't be something that happens that eventually makes that happen. Now, additionally, New York is getting the door shut in their face by just about everybody for permissions to speak with their coaches, from Chris Finch to Quinn Snyder to Ime Udoka. Now, yesterday we got Billy Donovan. The Bulls are saying no. Jay Wright doesn't have interest. The Bucks said yes, but Doc Rivers doesn't have interest. and what this ended up reminding me of was when the Oregon Ducks let Ernie Kent go. Now, I'm not saying Ernie Kent was Tom Thibodeau, but when he went, they're like, oh, we'll talk to Tom Izzo and we'll talk to Rick Pitino and we'll talk to and they had all these great college coaches that they were going to approach, and all those coaches, either the athletic department said no thank you or the coaches said no thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I get the Knicks is a much higher pedestal than the Oregon Ducks Pac-12 or then Pac-12 basketball, but what is the realistic future like for them? And are they going to end up having to settle for a middle tier candidate, an up and comer, or is there a big fish out there that comes around?
I don't think the big fish is going to end up being hooked. And that's the thing is, if you're going to fire somebody, you better have a replacement. Everybody made rightfully a big to do about Michael Malone being fired and Taylor Jenkins being fired.
Sure.
Remind me again, what happened following that? Did David Alman now become the head coach?
That's
and
right.
Tuama Cicelo now the head coach with the
That's
Memphis
right.
Grizzlies, because they knew what they were going to do. Now they didn't telegraph it.
Take that L on the way out.
Exactly. But like you don't make that move without having had discussions or have an idea.
You know what you're going to do. You know what the second step is after the first
and
step.
I don't think the Knicks did. And I think the Knicks, and I was joking with somebody the other day, the success of the Sphere and the Knicks, just too overwhelming for James Dolan. So now he's smelling his own farts and thinking, oh, I'm the king of the table and I can just go get what I want.
Do you see how great this is? Do you see how great I am?
I mean, that's been James Dolan's MO since he took over the Knicks. And you look at what the timing of the firing being so quick after the season, and particularly as it pertained to Johnny Bryant, who was a former assistant, who was a finalist for the Suns. You have to circle back and think that maybe that was the original thought, was that they would go get Johnny Bryant and have him be their head coach.
Okay.
But now you're at this point where, did you kind of alienate him by thinking that your fart smell better than everybody else's, and that you could go get something bigger and brighter and better, and this is just becoming, quote unquote Knicks for clicks, the way that the Knicks fans always get mad about, oh, it's this, that. Like, no, it's because the guy that owns your organization is absolutely insane.
And that is what makes that team so fun to follow. Another one to monitor as the offseason pushes on. But we need to get into a little bit of football, a chicken and the egg situation with one NFL franchise that's reputation is not so sterling. And is Jim Harbaugh bringing back pros version of helmet stickers? We'll talk about it. Danny and Friends, 1080 The Fan.
This is a U.S. Open week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
I love guys who like football. And guys who like football, they like me back, and I like them back. And even guys that don't like football, I mean, they try to avoid me because I'm always trying to get them to like football more.
Certified football guy Jim Harbaugh doing Jim Harbaugh things once again. Be an interesting season for the Chargers. That AFC West is so absolutely loaded, including your improving Las Vegas Raiders.
We don't suck.
No, I think every team in that division could be pretty good this year. I don't know that the Raiders will be there yet, but they certainly seem like they'll be more competitive.
There'll be a tougher out.
Yes.
Like that's the whole thing.
They got a real quarterback. They got a top-notch running back. They're moving the pieces out. They're getting some turnover, but yeah, the division's absolutely loaded. And now Jim Harbaugh, he's this really fascinating character to me because in addition to just saying quirky things like that and kind of communicating on a different plane than the rest of us.
He's an insane person, but like in the best possible way.
He just operates differently than the common man in a lot of ways. But it's so genuine and authentic, his like love and fervor for the game, that it almost is childlike at times. Mm-hmm. And I would think that some of the things he does would, among his players, be viewed as corny. But I think it just comes off as being extra football guy. And here's the latest thing that he's on. Jim Harbaugh has implemented jersey patches on the players' practice jerseys to implement their to recognize their accolades such as All-Pro selections, Pro Bowls, team records, and playoff appearances. So they got a picture of Justin Herbert up there, and it looks like, I mean, you're in the military. It looks like you're starting to get like patches for the different services that you have offered, that you've been on, the different skills that you have, and well, I don't hate the idea. I'm like, is this really necessary? Isn't that kind of what the captain's patch is for? Like, hey, this guy knows his stuff. And then Harbaugh's quote about it, he says, it's just like a resume. It kind of reminds me of a general has different patches. Any playoff appearance, captain, it's on there. If they have any NFL record or Chargers record or important awards, Man of the Year, All-Pro, the Block of Granite Award, someday they'll be able to put that jersey in a frame, put it on a wall, say something really good about themselves and what they accomplished as a pro football player. I like that.
Or you have the blank jersey.
The one that you played in on Sundays.
Well, no, I'm talking about like if you're on that team and you're just
you're nobody.
Yeah, and it's like, but this is gonna sound corny, but
so cool or lame?
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up playing youth football, we did have helmet stickers in Beaverton youth football, and that was kind of a thing. It's like, and we had them for touchdowns or big plays or any number of things.
Sure.
And we had them all over. Kind of like Ohio State does it with the Buckeyes. That kind of a deal.
Yep.
And it was always cool, and it always like
Florida State has the Tomahawks.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, some people are like, oh, it separates guys and it doesn't bring unity. And it's like,
but also motivates people.
But it all motivates people, and it also highlights greatness.
Yeah.
Like, and I know.
Well, what are we trying to do here?
And that's the thing. Is like, I like, look, man, I have, you bring up the military, like my ribbon rack,
It's important to you, probably.
It is. And like, for those that don't know, your ribbons are arranged in a particular order, in order of importance. I was a young guy that had a lot of what were called devices on top of my ribbons because I had done something multiple times. Like my marksman ribbon had an E because I was an expert across multiple weapons platforms. I had oak leaf clusters for multiple deployments to combat zones in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. And I was, 22, 23 years old, and this actually happened a couple times where I had a superior question me, and you can print out your DD-214 that has all of the things on it, because I was a guy who was a lot younger that had more stuff than most people my age.
You quite literally earned your stripes, so to speak.
Yeah, and in a sense, but it was because I was in a career field that I was deployed all the time. I was gone from the time that I graduated tech school, which is, a year plus of tech school, but now I'm gone. And I did a lot at a very, very, very young age. And it's me tooting my own horn. It's just like, that was what I was thrust into. It would be like, if you're a young player on those Patriots teams that was like a part of like, every one of those Super Bowls kind of a deal, or, you
got a fistful of rings and you're 25.
Yeah. You're a young guy on the San Antonio Spurs or the Lakers or whatever dynastic team you're a part of. Like, it's just being in the right place at the right time. Like, there were guys that had much longer careers than me in the military, but they served between, 1985 and 1999. It's like they got 15 years, but we weren't doing a lot globally in that time period.
Sure.
So like they didn't do as much. Mine was, we've have multiple theaters of operation going on in the world right now. We're doing a lot of work, and that's really what it comes about of. But if you talk about like whether it's the Chargers or the Raiders, like depending on where those teams are in their organization's history, like if you're a guy who's been there for a long time of unsustained success, it's like it's nice to highlight those things. I'm a proponent of it. I think it's cool.
Yeah,
I think
and it's
highlighting those things is a good thing.
It's one of those things that at the surface I thought looked kind of try hard, but I'm like, you know what? If it's something that the players like, if it's something that a guy who loves football like Jim Harbaugh likes, I'm not open to it. I just thought it struck me as odd initially because frankly just seems so collegiate, but it's something that they're doing. I don't know if it's something that's going to catch on elsewhere, but I did want to shift gears over to the AFC North where there's a dumpster fire in Cincinnati, one that's been burning long before this offseason, but they've been in these dire straits where expectations were pretty high. Their offense is off the charts. Their defense couldn't stop anybody, but they don't have the right idea of how to manage their player personnel, manage their salary cap, manage people's contracts. They're constantly having players unhappy with what their compensation is. They're holding out. Right now, it's all-pro defensive end Trey Hendrickson. And now they've got a problem brewing with one of their rookies. And I have this chicken and egg question because we're going to hear from Shamar Stewart here, who was drafted by the Bengals. And he's a rookie who has been at camp but has not been participating over contract dispute issues. Well, rookie contracts are essentially slotted, so you're going to make between what the guy ahead of you and after you made, but there are clauses for which he's holding out, and he thinks that the team is just not holding up their end. And for a rookie who hasn't played a snap on the team yet, to not only call them out over that, but also to call the team out over their handling of the veteran. Here's what Shamar had to say.
We all agree Trey will be right? But technically he's still 1% wrong for being under contract. So in my case, I'm 100% right, so it should be a no-brainer. And in Trey's case, I think it should be a no-brainer too. I mean, he led 17.5 sacks for 2 years back-to-back. If I was the GM or I was the owner, take all my money. But I guess they don't operate like that.
I guess they don't operate that, you say about your new employer who you'll be under control with for the next 5 seasons.
I will say he did commit a cardinal sin there. You don't ever talk about another player's deal.
Yeah.
You just say, I just met Trey. I know him. I hope he's a part of it.
And generally, you don't want to say when a guy is making too much money. I'd probably behind closed doors okay to advocate for a guy making more money, but it's not your business.
No, you don't. I don't think he did anything necessarily bad there, but if there's a veteran in that locker room, he's probably telling him, hey, brother, handle your own. You didn't do anything wrong. Don't mention anybody else's deal other than they should get a deal done.
Even if not mentioning other people's deal, though, pretty bold for him to take a shot already at the organization that drafted him. And it brought me this question because it feels like this stuff always happens to the Bengals or to teams like the Bengals. And do things like that happen because the Bengals are so poorly run? Or do things like that happen because they draft players who will say things like that about their organization? And maybe it's a little of column A and a little column B.
Well, here's the thing. There's 2 things, at least for me, going on here. One, I think Shamar Stewart is right because the things he's advocating for in his deal is literally a protection against him getting injured, which everybody else in front of him and behind him has gotten.
Yeah, and so why would the Bengals be holding out and being a stickler about this specific thing?
It's not about the money; it's about the protection. That's the thing that he's trying to get in there. Which, that's everybody else has gotten it, dude.
And you're well within your right to advocate for yourself.
And like I understand 100% where he's coming from, but also. The night he was drafted, when we came in the next day, the first thing I told Dusty was, do you see Shamar Stewart? Did you see his dad? I want no part of him or his dad. Like, I did no hard pass. And it was hilarious when we found out immediately that this was going to happen. I was like,
that he's that guy.
I could have told you this was going to happen 100%.
You don't want to judge a book by its cover, but I will say when I saw him on draft night, it wasn't necessarily a red flag thing. I was like, if you're getting guys off the bus from the draft, it's him I want. Dude is
terrifying.
A giant. I think he was shirtless under like an emerald suit, and he had all like terrifying force. And so, he's going to say what he wants and what he thinks he needs, but it's already a headache for Cincinnati that already has its fair share of headaches, including their best player not there, even though he has said he wants to be there. He just wants a new deal.
It's the Brown family. We all know
Yep.
what it is. It's they're one of the quote unquote poorest owners in the NFL, depending on how you look at it. I think they are the singular ownership group that's the poorest, because even though Mark Davis is right there with him, he sold off bits of the Raiders to quite a few people over the last couple of years to raise the equity on the team as far as the cash flow goes. But I mean, even when you talk about the TV deal and turning over $450 million a year in profit from that, which should enforce the ability to pay your roster, even when you have
inject
to put
a little flexibility for your cap. Yeah.
I mean, yes, you do have to put the big chunk of equity in on these big deals for Jamar Chase, for Joe Burrow.
You have to have the cash or a percentage of it.
Yep, and like that part of it is very real, and that's a prohibiting factor as it pertains to the Bengals. But if you can't pay the guys that you need year in, year out, your first round picks, if that is a problem,
what are you doing?
Need to sell the team.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well said there. We will get a couple more football nuggets in for you coming up a little bit later. But now we need to depart to our worst day on the web. That's coming up next. But first, Schultz Sports Center.
This is a U.S. Open week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the opening round of the 125th U.S. Open at Oakmont Country Club over in Pennsylvania happening right now. J.J. Spaun, an early finisher. He is still the overall leader at 4 under. Couple tie, actually, it looks like 3 tied for second place. Thriston Lawrence, Sung Jae Im, and Rasmus Nergård Peterson, the Swede. They were all sitting at 3 under. Siwoo Kim, along with Matthew Pavone and Patrick Reed, tied for 5th at 2 under par. You got about 10 or 11 guys sitting at 1 under, and quite a bit of the field sitting at even as well. World number 1, Scotty Scheffler, still sitting at 1 over. Xander Schauffele and Ludwig Aberg among those at 2 over right now. Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final happening tonight in Florida. Defending Cup champion Panthers hosting the Edmonton Oilers. They lead the series 2-1 and are favored on the money line, minus 260 with that series lead. Pre-game getting going over on 910 ESPN Portland at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 p.m. on TNT. And in the NFL, Bengals rookie defensive end Shamar Stewart left Cincinnati's mandatory minicamp today amid a contract dispute. He was selected with the 17th overall pick in this year's draft. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schultz from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Heard missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks. Don't call your mom. Tell George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
The Fan Merch Locker has a new black 1080 The Fan hoodie, as well as classic long and short sleeve tees. Get yours now at 1080thefan.com. It's time for today's worst day on the web. With Danny and Dusty on Odyssey and 1080 The Fan.
Man, that sucks.
Well, fittingly, you wouldn't know it, but during the break we were talking about not commercial, but air travel and the flying of the friendly skies, as it were, which leads into our worst day on the web here.
Ooh.
As a case is now being wrapped up where a man has been found guilty of posing as a flight attendant, going full Frank Abagnale from Catch Me If You Can, who did the hop arounds.
That's a little scary.
Yes. How many free flights do you think he booked as a fake flight attendant?
Oh, boy. If you're asking me the question, it's going to be way more than it should. I'll say 85.
120.
Oh!
Ultimately, he booked more than 120 free flights by falsely claiming to be a flight attendant. According to court documents and evidence presented from 2018 to 2024, Tyron Alexander, 35 years old, booked free flights on an airline carrier's website that were only available to pilots and flight attendants. In total, he flew on 34 without paying for them while posing as a flight attendant who worked for another airline. Over the 34 flights, Alexander claimed through the airline's carrier website application process, a process required an applicant to select whether they were a pilot or flight attendant and provide their employer, date of hire, and badge number information that he worked for 7 different airlines and had approximately 30 different badge numbers and dates of hire.
Wow. Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my head around how you pull this off without getting caught for so long. Because first I was wondering, big iron balls. But for one, like, it sounds like he's falsifying
federal documents.
He's falsifying documents, but I'm wondering how he knows, like, what numbers that I guess or stealing identities, whether it's badges from other people, because he's getting through the system saying he works for all these various airlines, but you would need certain credentials for the system to be able to accept that, I would think, unless there's egregious holes in the system, which is also possible.
Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner. Yeah, because you're talking about databases that are run, unfortunately, by our government and the various airlines. Yes, it's all run through the FAA, but also it's TSA certification and all the things that kind of go along with that. But I'll tell you right now, the integration of those systems in a singular system, not something that works. I'll say something mildly politically charged here right now. I've mentioned before, I am a Second Amendment guy. I have my shooty things. They're all properly secured, stored, trained, all those kind of things. But the number of people that have been caught in crimes with firearms they shouldn't have. It's something I can't remember. I was talking to somebody who works as a firearm instructor. He's like, it's something like 87% of the people who get caught
aren't licensed to have them.
Number one, it didn't get picked up by NICS. Either it's always sent in, because when you push send on the digital form, but it just doesn't get taken care of. We have a central database for it, but it's not updated. The upkeep isn't good enough.
It's not monitored.
And a lot of times
it just easily falls through the cracks.
That's what ends up happening. Is that people are like, well, we need a federal database. Like,
no,
we have one.
You need quality control and oversight.
We need to actually use it.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Fascinating.
Oh, it's so dumb.
And so now, and I'm guessing he just did this for his own personal whims. Like it was
over 6 years. Like
that's incredible. And so he's jet setting all over. Like,
at some point in time,
to be in these places, or he just found a loophole and said, "I'm going to be a traveling man."
No, just again, this is for the actual court documents from the. What is it? The justice.gov. This is the brief on it. He is up for sentencing. They do not have the sentencing guidelines in here. It just says that the U.S. District Judge is scheduled to sentence him on August 25th of this year after considering the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. There are the FBI special agent in charge, the head of the TSA Atlanta field office, and one other that are all kind of working in unison to lead the sentencing guidelines.
Well, and then that begs the question, maybe if they have figured out this error in their system now, or the lack of oversight, are there or were there others getting away with the same thing?
I'm sure.
If it was that easy?
Where there's one, there's always more.
Yeah.
This kind of fits the whole Dexter serial killer motif that I've personified here over 3 years. I have mentioned to my wife more than a handful of times like when you talk about like going back in time and like, oh, I'd invest in crypto and get into Amazon early and make all this money. I'm like, do you know how many scams and schemes I would run if I was around in the 1920s and the 1930s?
Be the nefarious hacker.
Oh my! Do you know how easy it was to get away with things?
You had a driver's license with no picture on it back then. That's nobody knew who you were,
brother. It was just trust. I mean, that's
exactly right.
Frank Abagnale, like literally, the thing he exploited was trust.
Yeah. He had ways of disarming people personally.
Yes,
he's a sociopath. Disarming them,
like,
but just make like
he's
personally.
a sociopath. Like there's no doubt about it. But like it was like his ability to garner confidence, like being a confidence man. He was also brilliant. Like the whole thing about him, like the bar exam thing, like that's real.
Yeah.
Like he's actually like a genius.
I need to go back and watch that again. It's probably been 7 or 8 years since I've seen it. That's a fantastic.
I mean, this is a guy who literally the Treasury Department hired out of prison to help them run their fraud department. Like,
the literal, if you can't beat him, have him join you.
Yeah.
Instead of join them. Yeah.
Abagnale was the perfect example of somebody that just has chutzpah. That you act like you belong somewhere and you will get in there. It's like walking past security at a game or
salespeople can sometimes have that sort of thing. There's certain people that know how to make others around them comfortable, whether that's genuine or not, whether that's for ill gains or for positive ones, and there's just that kind of personal touch that absolutely works.
The confidence part of it's huge. Like
100%.
Look, I was at an away arena. I had never been there before. I was picking up my credential inside the building, and I was meeting somebody to get it. And I literally just walked through the loading dock like I owned the place. Hey, what's going on? Like, not, egregious, but like, just say, hey, what are you doing? Da, da, da.
Yep.
But I looked the part.
Yep.
And I walked confidently. And when I got in there and I got into a locker room without a single credential, I ran into somebody in PR and they were like, where's your credential? I'm like, you got it still. He's like, I know.
Yeah, how'd you get?
How the hell did you get in here?
Because no one stopped me.
I go confidently.
Yeah.
He goes, I cannot. I'm like,
somebody needed to be fired.
That's great. My friends and I did something similar, and it was totally unintentional. But we went to the Fiesta Bowl when Oregon took on Kansas State down in Glendale, the DeAnthony Thomas opening kickoff game, and when we were trying to leave the stadium, we were trying to avoid the main concourse because it was jam-packed. And so we were trying to take a back stairwell, and we actually went one floor further down than we should have. So instead of being on the main floor, we were kind of in the bowels of the arena, or the stadium down there. And we opened the door, and there's nobody standing there. And it's just like all the maintenance people and carts and stuff like that you'd have for a big bowl game. And my buddies kind of look at each other like, should we go on the field? And I'm like, and I had covered lots of sports at this point in time. And I basically just told him we had those little like ticketing lanyards or whatever that the casing for them at least looks kind of official for whatever. And I said, just act like you're supposed to be here and it'll probably be fine. We walked right onto the field for the post game right after the Fiesta Bowl. And then by the time we were about 30 yards out there, one of my buddies was like, and he did their like run and like people are doing confetti snow angels in the end zone. And eventually, 20 minutes later or something, somebody asked. But at that point, if you are acting among the others as they are acting, it's usually no problem.
No, it's kind of crazy to think about. And like, there have been incidents that I've heard of around the NBA where people got into locker rooms who should not.
Yeah, that happens.
And you will hear about security getting fired.
Yep, I've seen that happen in Major League Baseball too.
Being beefed up and stuff like that. But like, I'm telling you, look, don't do it. Don't do it.
No.
Don't do it.
But it can be done.
Unless you're Lady Gaga with no panties or no pants, only in panties. Because didn't she try to visit the New York Yankees locker room to meet A-Rod, and the security guards actually let her through?
Who was that?
Lady Gaga.
Really?
Lady Gaga. Back like
I didn't know that story.
2 or 3 years after she got famous, she was able to get her way into the Yankees locker room, and it was a national story.
I mean, that's not really surprising. She didn't get a gift basket, but
yeah, Jeets. Yeah, Jeets.
But like that's the beast of this. But like, just thinking about this, like, is there in the innocent crime of stealing a flight? That's a pretty good one.
Absolutely,
right? Like, I mean,
I think the ones that you can appreciate the most are the ones where no one's harmed. You're like, this didn't really affect anybody.
The only one this harms is the airline company because it costs them probably some additional fuel and things like that.
Right, but marginal, minuscule stuff. You're not stealing from someone. I mean, you're stealing from the airline kind of, but like you're not like from another person. You're not inflicting harm. You just kind of found a way to get a free ride, and sometimes that's kind of fun. Oh yeah, 102 of them or 36.
He booked 120, took 34. But I mean, like 34 flights. That's probably more. I would imagine it's probably more than 99% of the world gets in their life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. Let's get back into a couple more NFL nuggets before we finally have to take a trip to Oakmont. Also, we got lots more NBA Game 3 stuff to discuss as the Pacers now have the edge 2-1 in that one. We will get back into the NFL stuff, including one awful fantasy football punishment that's coming up next. Danny and Friends, 1080 The Fan.
Check out the This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Good little jam. Welcome back to Danny and Friends, a Danny and Buck edition today. I want to get into a couple more NFL things here. And I'd recently just started watching the show Stick on Apple TV. This is not NFL related per se, but
I watched the first episode last night.
Okay, bear with me and we'll get there. But one of the things in the show, it's if you haven't seen it, it's Owen Wilson. He is a former star golfer turned golf pro trying to mentor a young kid. The part of his past is that he had like an unbelievable, memorable meltdown.
Tin Cup.
Tin Cup style. And so when he's asked at some point, why are you doing this? Like, why are you pursuing, like, coaching this kid or whatever? And he said, because I'm trying to make sure the worst moment of my life on YouTube isn't the biggest thing that happens to me. And So it got me thinking about this because we now have a pro athlete who was visibly dunked on in one of the most iconic ways in the last season of sport, and he wants it celebrated. We're talking about Jerrion Jones. I was not familiar with the player before. You might know him as the player that Saquon Barkley hurdled over this last season when the Eagles took on the Jags. So obviously, Saquon Barkley, it's been announced, cover guy for Madden, but they went in and they weren't taking an old still frame for the cover. They went in and they did a shoot to make it look
recreated,
good.
yeah.
They recreated it. They had him do the jump. They also had some cables and a green screen so they could hold certain poses with it. And so what you see on the cover won't be the actual play. It'll be a recreation of the play with actual Saquon. But Jerrion Jones is like, hey, man, I should be on the cover of Madden too. What say you? But is that a badge of honor? And do you want that celebrated? Or is it just like that's the closest dalliance with fame that you'll have, and so you're latching on?
Look, man, if you got to be Bill Buckner in a situation, you might as well.
But Bill Buckner wasn't going hand up, put me on the cover.
I'm saying if you're gonna be Bill Buckner, if you're gonna have the meltdown, if you're gonna be like, Cliff Robinson's in the video with the Jordan shrug. You know, it's like, if you're gonna be a part of it, you're gonna be a part of it. You know, it's like it happens. There's two where it quite literally ended their careers. And one of them involves a Portland Trailblazer, and one of them is the most iconic dunk in basketball history.
I do know the latter that you speak of. That'd be Vince Carter in the Olympics, over 7'2". Friedrich Weiss, is that who it was? Okay.
No, you're right. It was. I always get Weiss and Pleiss mixed up for whatever reason. Those are the two names. But it is the last time he played basketball.
Unbelievable.
And for those that don't know about this moment, Vince Carter
go YouTube this moment if you don't know what we're talking
literally
about.
jumped over a 7'2" human and postered him in the Olympics.
He used the path of least resistance, splitting his legs and going over the top of a 7'2" center.
This man's genitals were over a man's head who was 7'2", to put into perspective just how high Vince Carter flew.
Yeah.
The other one, anybody who knows me knows that Brandon Roy is my favorite player to ever watch play the game of basketball.
Okay.
And against the Los Angeles Clippers.
Oh, did he get blaked?
No. Jake Som was talking some S to Brandon Roy, and he was a journeyman center at best.
Okay.
And Som had a play the previous possession and started kind of pumping his fist and thumping his chest and just talking just cash S to Brandon. Brandon drives the rim, takes off from a foot inside the free throw line, and it is one of the most vicious dunks I have ever seen.
Nice.
And he baptizes Jake Som. He is taken out of the game. It's the last minute of basketball he ever played.
And I guess in both cases, I don't really know. Is that because he just didn't have the game in the first place, or could he quite literally not come back from it?
I don't know if it's the former or the latter. It's probably more of the not being good enough.
Yeah.
But
that's an unfortunate finality to your career. Like, it's one thing to not make it in the sport that you pursued. It's another for your very last memory of it to be the worst thing that happened in your playing career.
It is. I'm playing it right now for you,
so
you can see it.
Oh yeah, I've seen this dunk before. I just couldn't place it until you brought up the highlight. Yeah, that's nasty.
I mean, just absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not.
And that dude never played another play.
No, there's a time. It's either a timeout here or it's a timeout the next possession.
Jeez.
It is the last time he got on the court.
My God.
The last time he got on the court, and the look back that Brandon gives him makes it even better. Because, like I said, Sam was talking a whole lot of junk beforehand. Look, if you're going to be on the losing side of something,
leaning in's not the worst thing you can do.
It's honestly, it's the
in today's day and age, it's probably the best thing you can do.
Even if you go to the darkest thing that could happen, and boy, this is going to border on the tiptoeing on something.
Buckle up.
Look at Japan and Germany.
What are they leaning into?
Leaning into the hey, we don't acknowledge with the Nazi thing. Yeah, no, we're stealing away of it. That was bad. We're not good. Japan lining up for the axis of evil. You know what? We're pretty good not having a military anymore. We'll go ahead and use your guys'. Sometimes the worst things that could ever happen, leaning into that was bad, huh? That was bad.
We'll own that.
We'll own that.
Won't happen again.
Not good. We're not going to do that again. You know what I mean? You can go to the literal worst things in humanity and find that same lesson to hold true that it does in even the minuscule world of sports.
Yeah, so when he was asked about it, Jerry Jones said, S was kind of hard. Who's going to disagree with him?
Look, nobody's ever been hurled backwards at any level. That might be the first time in humanity that has ever happened in a football game.
Now, we know that NFL fans are insane, and Eagles fans specifically. I want to now call your attention to something I don't think you've seen yet. Go ahead and go over to Jason Kelsey's X account. Have you seen this today? There's an Eagles fan who has gotten a Jason Kelsey tribute tattoo, and it looks like he is posing naked as a pinup, but he's got something covering his crotch, and I can't tell what it is. Is it a bird? Is it an eagle's? Yeah, it's an eagle's face or an eagle's head.
Oh God!
Go check. It's easy to find Jason Kelsey's Twitter
Thankfully,
account.
It's not a rooster.
Go to it. And Kelsey himself comments, goes, "I'm not sure if I should be offended or flattered." It's kind of like a naked pinup wrestler, Jason Kelsey.
It is. In his second comment, I think it's more flattered. It's a generous bird, good sized head.
Yeah, and so he does have like the Eagle's head, which doesn't look very much like the logo, but essentially what's supposed to be the Philadelphia Eagle covering the junk.
Well, I mean, I think it is the junk more than anything else here. Again, we talked about bad tattoos. Don't get this Look, if you're going to get a bad tattoo, this looks like a tattoo for a bet lost.
It could be. And it actually brings me to one other story that I'll corkscrew in here. I don't know if you play fantasy sports. I know plenty of people out there do. Some fantasy leagues, and I think the ones that have been together for a long time and really know how to have fun with it, have a punishment for the loser, the person who comes in last. And sometimes there are leagues out there that it is a tattoo. And you have to say, like, Andy's season was great with a little unicorn jumping over a rainbow or something. Like, stuff like that happens. But I saw one today that came out of Minnesota. I'm guessing it's a league that's at least in the area of Minneapolis and Vikings football. They're one of the teams. I think the Ravens has this. I think the Bears might as well. That they have a drum line. The Minnesota Vikings do. And the punishment this year for the loser of the fantasy league was that you had to go try out in earnest for the drum line. So there are like musical directors, a conductor, like people there, and there's this poor schlub out there with two cymbals trying to pretend like he knows what he's doing in a solo audition. And I thought that was creative.
Were the Vikings in on it?
I don't believe they were. The friends just videoed it. They were like on a balcony somewhere away from where it was happening, and it was basically like, no, you just have to pretend like this is totally legit and go and do it in earnest.
Full on jackass.
Yeah, totally. And that guy just making an ass out of himself. I have a buddy who plays in a league where they do the thing where you get like an actual board to put up draft picks on, and they do it live and in person. Sure. The loser from the previous year has to dress up in a dress and present them a la Vanna White and be slapping them on the board the entire time. So my buddy lost a couple years ago. He went with an Amish theme. He had a very long, flowing, long sleeve dress, and he even capped it off with a bonnet.
Oh, that's perfect. I saw the draft order slotting for one. These guys all went to like Hawaii.
Do a competition to decide like how
they had to run a 40
out?
In the ocean.
Oh,
so it's like knee-high water. And it's funny because you can see the tides changing over the course of this video because I think it's like 15 guys. Yeah. Like the first guy that runs a 40 in like 10 flat in like knee-thigh high water, which that's booking when you're running through the waves coming in.
Sure.
There's a guy in the middle of this where you can see the waves just pick up and they wipe him out like 5 times. He runs like an 8.
Trying to get the 4th or better.
he ends up like 18 seconds. He's dead last. It's just like, there was one guy who lost one of those. He had to be one of those folks in Times Square in the circle. And he was like a cross between like the Naked Cowboy and Mickey Mouse or like one or the other.
Yep.
So he was like just had the mascot head on with the diaper, and he had to be out there all day entertaining.
I saw one. There's 2 others I saw that were pretty creative. One, they had the loser had to take a blow-up doll out to a date on at a restaurant and pretend like it was. So the guy had to like go to a Chili's and put the doll across the booth from him and order something for her, and again, you just had to act like it was normal with
couldn't be like,
with
hey,
the wait
look,
staff.
I
have to do
this
a thing. Go with me. No, he had to like had to keep it normal. And then the other one is for their draft, this league, they go out for like a big meal together every year, and they do the draft out there. They make the loser sit at a kiddie table and eat like hot dogs and Easy Mac while they nosh on steak and surf and turf and stuff like that.
I would let them sit at the big boy table, but you
still make them eat that?
Well, no. you get the tab.
Yeah,
You
that's the more common one.
You get
some
the rookie scale.
Very wary of.
Yeah, that one can get real pricey real fast depending on the size of your draft.
I've heard about that going real sideways in NBA circles with the credit card roulette.
Oh, buddy.
Speaking of the NBA, we need to get back into the NBA Finals. Game 3 was a doozy, just a clinical comeback again from the Indiana Pacers. We'll talk about that next in hour number 3. Danny and Friends, 1080 The Fan.
SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Laurelhurst Market, Steakhouse, and Butcher Shop. Call in your special Butcher Shop orders for Father's Day weekend or pick up a gift card for Dad. Laurelhurst Market, First on the Fan, opening round of the 125th U.S. Open in progress right now. We have two now atop the leaderboard. J.J. Spawn finishing up much earlier. He is in first at 4 under, but Sungjae Im moving into first as well, at least a tie for first. He is through 10, also at 4 under. Tristan Lawrence, Matthew Pavone, and Rasmus Nygaard Peterson sitting at 3 under, tied for third. Siwoo Kim in 6th place at 2 under. Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm, they're sitting at 1 over through 11 so far. Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final happening tonight in Florida. The defending Cup champion Panthers hosting the Edmonton Oilers, and the Panthers lead that series 2-1. Are favored on the money line at minus 260. Pregame getting going over on 910 ESPN. Portland at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 p.m. on TNT. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schultze from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Heard missing work? Insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at warrenallen.com.
Jump back to earlier parts of your favorite fan shows on the Odyssey app. The only way to rewind Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan. Oakmont Country Club is the home of this year's U.S. Open.
There is the scoreboard, Johnny Miller.
It's U.S. Open week with Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club, the best course in the Northwest for year-round golf. Book your tee time at langdonfarms.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080.
Somebody's going to have to get a couple of birdies to catch Johnny Miller, and at the moment it doesn't look like it.
The Fan.
Yeah, nobody did catch Johnny Miller, one of the legendary runs at the U.S. Open. And I promise we will get to some round one U.S. Open talk here in just a little bit, but need to get to a little bit more basketball. A massive game last night. It feels like time is flying and we have barely touched on it. So let's talk about a little bit about this banger last night. It was all OKC early. Indiana kind of stemmed the tide. And then Indiana does what we've seen Indiana do. They dig in, they get some stops, they make some adjustments, and they take control of the momentum of the game. And there are a lot of heroes for this Indiana team right now. Whether it's last night, you had Benedict Mathurin, had a massive game. TJ McConnell, huge spark. And Rick Carlisle just continues pushing the buttons. The man steering the ship has made all the right moves so far. And on top of it, you got great play again from your superstars, Halliburton and Siakam. Where do you want to start?
I think I'd start with the Mathurin and McConnell of it all, because those are the guys that mattered. That the others that we always talk about. When game 2 is Caruso and Wiggins for the Thunder. You know, they combined for 38 points. They hit 10 threes. They give you the stuff that, you know, allows you to build the lead up in the way that you do if you're the Thunder. And I thought in game 3, particularly in that second quarter, where TJ McConnell gets 5 steals.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just so damn disruptive. The Pacers crank out a 40-point second quarter. They really get loose, and that's when you saw the transition opportunities, getting the early shot clock opportunities. Halliburton was just finding everyone everywhere. Everyone was finding a way to contribute. Miles Turner had not a great three-quarter run,
but was huge in the fourth.
My God,
and it finished with 5 blocks, I think.
I mean, that block on Chet when he closes out of the three-point line, just absolutely.
Well, and then he got him again on the back end of the play,
and you're just like, my goodness. And then Nembhard bodies Chet on a ball. It's not a 50-50 ball; it's a 20-80 ball. Chet has to come out with that ball, and Nembhard goes, "Nah, dog."
Mine.
Boom, pulls it, rips it out.
Yep.
You get the run out, and then SGA tries to go for a steal on the other side, and Siakam just slides right through and lays it in. That's ball game at that point.
By the way, on TJ McConnell, this stat from Tim Reynolds, it's the first time that someone off the bench has had a 10-point, 5-assist, 5-steal game in the NBA Finals ever.
Yep.
Never been like that. Impact is immeasurable for them.
And Ben Mathurin had the 3rd highest scoring output off the bench in NBA history in the finals. And if you look at the list of guys on that list, it is like, oh, you're talking about the best 6 men of all time.
Let me get that list for you, because I do have
Manu
it in my
Ginobili,
notes. So
Jason Terry.
Players to score 25 plus in a finals game at 22 or younger: Kobe Bryant, Tony Parker, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Ben Mathurin. That's the list.
And none of those guys did it off the bench.
Nope. They were all starters.
When
and
you're talking,
all key players.
And when you talk about no matter what age, guys off the bench, it's the 3rd highest scoring bench output in NBA Finals history. And the guys that are alongside him, like I mentioned, it's guys like Jason Terry and Manu Ginobili and Sam Cassell.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, like the dudes that help win titles.
And you mentioned Terry, most points dropped off the bench, or most points off the bench in a game dropped since Jason Terry in 2011. Today, by the way, the anniversary of the Mavericks' first final.
Oh, the first final.
The first one that they won in 2011.
Okay, the one they won. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
not going to,
yeah.
but yes,
So,
crowning.
yeah, it's 14 years ago today, right?
Yep, that's right. So I want to talk about Ben Mathurin, though, because he is a dude who I wasn't sure coming out of Arizona was what to expect, because he has mad game as far as just physical ability. He's got bounce, but I almost, and the guy that I kind of likened him to is a dude that I covered when I was working with the Sacramento Kings, a guy that they picked up, Ben McLemore. And obviously Ben Mathurin, a way bigger and better Ben at this point in time, but his trajectory, is it just more attention on him now because he's doing it under the spotlight, or has he been doing this all along?
When you're looking at the scouting profile, and I was trying to pull up my old tweets on him, the Mathurin prototype was, okay, here's this 6'5", 6'6", supreme athlete. And when he had his moments at Arizona, it was pretty overwhelming at times. And you're like, yeah, I get it, but he was inconsistent. The shot was inconsistent. And yeah, he's a kid and all those kind of things. But it was like, okay, he's a guy that is going to be in the Blazers' range. And, he gets taken a pick before with the Pacers grabbing him, or 2 picks before with Pacers grabbing him. And it was one of those. Sharp and Dyson Daniels were kind of in that same group of like, these are guys that have like outlier traits and skills, but you just don't really know. Dyson has really delivered on his on the defensive end.
Yep.
Mathurin and Sharp are kind of, I think, in similar molds of like
explosive offensive players.
The consistency, though.
Yeah.
But like when they have it rolling, you're like, damn.
When they put it all together, the combination of talent and skill, you're like, oh, if you could bottle that up and keep doing that 28 minutes a night, that'd be awesome.
And I'm always caught off guard. Did you catch Mathurin post game with SCP?
I did not.
So I'm always caught off guard by his voice. He's got a very
interesting.
Deep,
where's he from initially?
God,
where he grew up.
I think he's petitioning to play for the Jamaican national team, if I remember right.
But did he grow up in the U.S.?
I think he spent some time down in the Caribbean.
Let's find out. He's Canadian.
He is Canadian, but I think he spent some time in the Caribbean before going to Canada, if I'm not mistaken. Or it's either that or his parents were. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's French Canadian. He's from Montreal, isn't he not?
Born and raised in Montreal, grew up playing ice hockey and Canadian football as a quarterback, competed for the Quebec provincial basketball team, and then joined the NBA Academy in Latin America and Mexico City. Mm-hmm. So let's see. And
very internationally traveled.
Yeah. Well traveled.
But like, so he has, you hear a little bit of the French Canadian in his voice, but like, if you've ever heard Delano Banton talk, because he talks like he's from Toronto.
Okay.
There's a lot of, oh yeah. Like there's that up and down.
Sure.
Where Mathurin's is so steady. And he's like, you look at him talk, he barely blinks. He's so stoic and such a straight line. It always catches me off guard because he's still such a young kid, and you just don't often see young kids have that demeanor. And he's pretty damn even keel. And it's almost one of those things like, well, Shaden's kind of the same, but it's more even more reserved and dialed back. And I think with both those guys, you're trying to get jumper cables on them and get them up a little bit, right? But, Mathurin's production last night was incredible. The shot making was absurd. His ability to get where he wanted, when he wanted, and play in the chaos was just everything that the Pacers needed last night. And we talk about the offense of the Pacers so much. The Pacers held the Oklahoma City Thunder, one of the best offenses in the league, to 18 points in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Final 5-7 minutes of that game, OKC didn't know what to do. They couldn't get anything. Chet couldn't get going.
I think they had one made field goal in the last 5:57 of the game.
And the shots they were getting up weren't exactly great looks.
No, they were tough looks. They were closed out, hand in the face.
The Pacers were flying everywhere on a string, disruptive. Like Rick Carlisle, you and I have talked about this. Rick Carlisle and his adjustments have been obscene. The Pacers are beating the ever-living crap out of the Thunder in the second half. That's just what has happened in all these games so far. They have found a way at halftime to make their adjustments and implement them damn near perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Now they got too far behind the 8 ball in game 2. If the Pacers can ever come out quick, like in game 1, it was the turnovers, 19 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah.
Everybody talked about, well, if the Thunder just hit their shots, I'm like, what happens if the Pacers
just
take care of the ball?
Yep.
This game's over.
Yep.
It's not a Tyrese Halliburton game winner necessary.
You don't need to dig yourself out of an almost 20-point hole.
No, they're running away with the game.
Yeah. And so that then, and we'll answer this question on the other side of the break. That then begs the question, who actually has the upper hand at this point? Because the odds might say one thing, but another team has the 2-1 lead nearly halfway through the finals. We'll keep unpacking it next. Danny and friend, 1080 The Fan.
It's back. This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back to Danny and Friends, a Danny and Buck edition. A reminder that you can reach out to us on the fan text line, 503-864-6326. You can also find this on the YouTubes and on the Twitch if you search 1080 The Fan. We're talking a little NBA Finals here, and I was a little bit surprised by this specific figure. I often look at sports stuff through the betting lens. I think it's in addition to being fun,
degeneracy.
In addition to having fun gambling, I do think what the lines tell you or can tell you about probabilities and likelihoods and what the public thinks of those probabilities and likelihoods can be fascinating. And so I thought certainly that after the Pacers won last night at home to take a 2-1 lead, they've got the same number of games in both teams' buildings now the rest of the way. I was stunned that the Pacers are still not favorites to win the NBA Finals. At this point in time, irrelevant of the odds, if I said, Danny, you have to tell me right now who's going to lift the trophy, is it the Pacers or is it the Thunder? It's a really tough ask with them having one game in hand. At least I think.
My head says the Thunder. My heart says the Pacers. There's something about this Pacers team, and this is where you get into the intrinsic stuff of like the math and the algorithms and everything that drives all this stuff. And it's all designed by people that are some of the brightest, literal brightest mathematicians on the planet. Like those palaces in the desert weren't made on guesses. Like they hire. I got the opportunity to meet a couple lines makers when I was at a sports book a couple years ago. They were all MIT.
Yeah, they're really smart individuals.
These are people who could go do literally anything in their field, but they make the most money making these lines and these algorithms and these probability charts for these casinos because it makes these guys literally get paid millions of dollars to do this. And they work in a little black box that's about as classified and secret in the business world as military secrets. It's nuts, the stuff that goes into this. I said it multiple times. There's a real path for the Pacers to win this series coming into this series. I'm not switching up now like that. I do very much believe that. Looking at Friday's game, the Thunder are 5.5-point favorites again. It's the same line they had coming into last night's game.
Yep.
I don't know how you can not change the line. I really don't.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I don't. They keep showing us who they are, they being the Pacers, and it kind of feels like it doesn't have the ripple effect that you would have. And the reason I bring this up, and I mentioned through the betting lens, is that this morning, and depending on where you're looking at the odds, it's a little bit different, but you're essentially looking at a 2-1 ticket on the Pacers to lift the trophy and about minus 180 on the Thunder. So essentially, if I gave you $100 to put down and said, okay, do you want to put this down to win 50 on the Thunder or 200 on the Pacers? That's what the books are asking right now. And I'm surprised at that discrepancy.
I am too. And look, the reason is because the math over the longer haul.
Sure.
What the Thunder have done both offensively, defensively, limiting their own turnovers, forcing turnovers. Because like when you're talking about the math behind this, it's
when
not
you talk MIT guys, this is all baked into their algorithms.
And what they're factoring in is like the all of the variables that go into this. It's quite literally a math problem. And what they do is they devise formulas for generating turnovers and likelihood based on each individual player's metrics of like how successfully they either generate turnovers or convert turnovers into points. How many possessions will then turn out in a given game. They run these scenarios through, multiple, servers that are, pressing this stuff. It's like Christopher Nolan, the interstellar black hole. It was something like 100 computing hours necessary to process every single second of the black hole.
Okay.
Because it was rendered and done with as much realism as humanly possible. And now they have multiple servers that are running this, so it's computing hours. So it doesn't actually take 100 hours.
Yeah.
But that, like, when you're talking computing power, that's what it would have taken to process this kind of stuff. And it's the same kind of thing that goes into this. They run these simulations 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 times to be able to churn this stuff out in order to give you that's how you get those win probability scales. But those win probability scales have been thrown upside down, backwards, forwards, in every which way with the Pacers. Not once, not twice, not three, not four, but 5 times this year in just the playoffs. And the wrench that there becomes a certain point where like this team becomes a team of destiny, and it starts feeling.
And hasn't it already felt that way a lot for them?
This is like the longer drawn out version of the U.S. versus the Soviets. This is the miracle on ice.
Sure.
Like this was not supposed to happen this way
At a number of turns,
and yet it keeps happening. At some point in time, you have to just kind of crumple up the data and go, what are the results?
Yeah,
and. Now Vegas doesn't make their money doing that.
No, and they will still stick by. I mean, they are so team agnostic. You can strip away the logos, strip away the cities, and strip away the personnel. They will look at the numbers and they will make it based on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely objective. Numbers I'm not sure that they are taking into account because I'm not sure how you would put this in specifically. Do you know the last time the Pacers lost back-to-back games?
I'm going to say like February.
Close. March 8th and 10th. Yeah. So it's been months. I mean, for perspective, Oregon Ducks were still playing basketball March 8th and 10th. Like, this is a long-ass time ago. And the fact that, again, credit to Carlisle, when something goes wrong, they fix it, and they fix it quickly. If you're not going to undergo a streak of losses here, if you're not going to lose back-to-back, then they're going to win this thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, the stat that I mentioned, the Pacers have not trailed in a series yet.
Yep.
Like, that's got to be something that's taken into consideration. And you got to give Carlisle his credit, Halliburton, even though Hallie didn't have like the most electric game we've ever seen him have, his aggression last night
late and he was clutch,
noticeably different.
Yep. Like it was assertive.
My evaluation on Halliburton when he came out, I mentioned this early on in the playoffs. Coming into the draft, I go, the more tape I watch on him, the more I'm like, he's a more awkward right-handed Mike Conley.
Okay.
Always has control of the game, is a good enough shooter, but can get to his spots whenever he wants.
But doesn't look orthodox getting there.
Exactly. And the other thing that stood out is his floater. And he used that floater so much last night. Every time he needed to make something happen, he gets in there, and his touch is immaculate. It is impeccable. He gets to his spots, and the defense collapses just enough, and he's like, you have to worry about him because of the jump passes, so the defense freezes for that split second.
Yeah.
He had that play on Case and Wallace with the pass fake.
Oh, that was so good.
Oh,
that was so good.
I mean, Case and Wallace turns the other way, like, and it just pulls the three like it's nothing.
I did that one time in an open gym in college, and I felt like a god.
Oh, you got to hit the shot.
Oh, that's the thing.
It's like you got.
If you don't knock it down, it doesn't matter.
Now it's like, oh, like when you cross somebody over, you get them to fall down. You get a guy with a look off or something like that. You have to hit the shot. And that's the thing about Halliburton. Every time he seemingly needs to do the thing, he does it.
Yeah, that's why now his new nickname, The Moment. Have you seen that? Basketball Reference official. Hard to argue with. A couple other stats I wanted to throw your way that I just found interesting. Under the current 2-2-1-1-1 format, the lower seeded teams, in this case the Pacers, have yet to win in trailing a 2-1 deficit. So they would have to make history in order to do this.
3-1's the death nail.
Yes.
We've only won
one time.
One time. Your beloved Dubs fall on the backside of that. It doesn't happen in basketball.
Yeah,
like
it's really rare.
It's
the home team or the team that starts with the home advantage usually takes advantage of that.
Yeah, and I want to say it's something like if the home team goes up 1-0, it's something like 72%.
It might even. I wanted to say it was like 81. It might even, but it's way high.
Like if the home team 70s, wins game 80s. One, it's like the math just says 3/4 plus. Basically.
And of course they didn't in this case.
And that's mark number one. You steal home court and then you win at home again to take a 2-1 lead. Like when you get 2-1, you could just say, well, the OKC could come out there and do what they did in game 2 and run away with this and tie this up, and it reverses it all. It doesn't, because now if you get to that point, you're getting into we are now at a best of 4.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, and whoever gets to 2 first basically is, that's going to be your winner.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me. The other thing, and I don't know, I'd be curious about your take on this as well, and then we'll turn the page and move over to the U.S. Open real quick. But the Thunder, I saw after last night, are now 0-8 against the spread on the road this postseason. They have not covered, and granted, they've been big favorites in most of those road games, so it's just not necessarily winning by margin. But
they had a 14.5 point.
But that also tells you that they are not performing at least to the algorithm expectations on the road.
Which is why you have to give, particularly in this case, the Pacers the credit. Because the math says they're gonna do X, and the Pacers are not allowing them to do that.
And it hasn't gotten to that point yet. So now the question is, can they make the shift? Does Diagonal have the chops to make their adjustments? And what does that look like? I mean, I'll be fascinated to see how the rest of this thing plays out, because
it's not just a play better button.
No, it's not. It's not just a hit a couple more shots. Like they're not. You mentioned earlier, they're not getting good looks.
No.
Like they're getting kind of shut down and beat at the game that they want to play. And now they're facing an uphill climb. Until last night, I still wasn't. You gave the Pacers a chance. I still really hadn't, even though they'd shown it many times over. Now I feel like you have to take them seriously. And even though the betting line wouldn't suggest that they're the favorites, I'd be leaning towards betting them as the favorites at this point. We got to get to the U.S. Open. It's still carnage out there. We'll get to that next. But first, Schultz Sports Center.
This is a U.S. Open week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
Now, from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the 125th U.S. Open opening up today over at Oakmont Country Club in Pennsylvania. Still in progress right now, and we've got a new leader all on his own. Sung Jae Im at 5 under through 11 right now. He tops J.J. Spawn, who finished much earlier. He's sitting now in second all on his own at 4 under par. Thriston Lawrence, Matthew Pavone, and Siwoo Kim, just Pavone and Lawrence at 3 under. Siwoo Kim and Sam Burns, along with Rasmus Nergard Peterson, all sitting at 2 under. About 10 golfers sitting at 1 under par. Jordan Spieth at even. Jon Rahm moving up to even as well. Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final happening tonight in Florida. The defending Cup champion Panthers hosting the Edmonton Oilers. The Panthers lead that series 2-1 and are favored on the money line at -260. Pre-game starts over on 910 ESPN Portland at 4:30. Puck drop at 5 p.m. on TNT. And in the NFL, Bengals rookie defensive end Shamar Stewart leaving Cincinnati's mandatory minicamp today amid a contract dispute. He was selected with the 17th overall pick in this year's draft. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schultz from the George McCoy at Warren Allen Sports Desk. Hurt and missing work, insurance companies acting like jerks? Don't call your mom. Call George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
It's back. The 11th annual Fan Golf Classic at Langdon Farms Golf Club happens Tuesday, June 24th. Presented by your local Toyota dealers. Reserve your This is a U.S. Open Week edition of Danny and Dusty
Brought to you by Langdon Farms Golf Club.
on 1080 The Fan.
Let's talk some golf. It's about time. It is U.S. Open week here on The Fan. Round 1 at Oakmont. Still going, and some really big names still out on the course through 10, 11, 12 holes. But the course has been an absolute beast today. It started off okay. It started to get baked out, and now it seems like as the sun's going down there, it's becoming, I don't know about favorable, but a little bit more playable.
It's sucking less.
But tons and tons of low scores. Right now, there are, let's see.
6 golfers, three under or better, with the leading score, J.J. Spawn, 4 under. He was in the first group?
That's one of either the first group off or the second group off. But yeah, he was in one of the very first groups today. He was hot with the flat stick. I think he hit 6 putts over 7 feet or longer. And now here to analyze the U.S. Open first round, one Isaac Ropp. He even brought his golf clubs with him today. Oh no, he's not going to actually help us here. No, he's not. But the U.S. Open,
he needs his glasses so he can put his driver together.
Right now. 25 players are even par or better. 25 out of 155. It's a massive field. The reason it's called the U.S. Open, anybody can play in it. Anybody can qualify. Anybody has. In fact, this year, you and I were talking about it off air, but there is a golfer by the name of Matt Vogt, who is a dentist out of Indianapolis, former stick who used to play in college, did some long drive stuff, and said, I wonder if I could win one of these sectionals. And he did just that. He went out, flew from Indy to Washington, played the Walla Walla sectional. Now he's out there playing for a chance to try to get to the weekend, but he's not going to. He went 12 over today. I saw plenty
that's respectable.
Very much so for the dentist who plays on the weekends.
You played under bogey golf.
Yes.
At the U.S. Open at what is universally considered one of the toughest courses on the planet.
Well, put in perspective, Shane Lowry is an excellent golfer, a world top 20 type of guy. He had an eagle today and still finished 9 over par. An eagle takes two strokes off. You lose that eagle, you're 1 stroke away from Shane Lowry, the dentist. And so that's the thing about this course is the way they have it set up. And obviously, the U.S. Open typically known for being exceptionally tough conditions, but it's supposed to be a field leveler and make it so that almost anybody can be competitive if you can play controlled golf. And I don't know about you and how much golf you watch. Do you like more when they have formats like this that are more challenging and challenge the golfers, or do you want to see these guys flex whatever they got and have a big birdie fest, or are you somewhere in between?
No, I like this. This is what I want to see. I want to see guys stand over the ball, look down, look at the shot, look at their caddy, and question every bit of life that is in front of them.
And that's what you're saying.
Because otherwise, like, you get to, like, at the Sawgrass, you can see some crazy scores down there. The Waste Management Open, like, you guys just go nuts. And that can be fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, don't get me, was it 16th that you've got the gallery hole where everybody's just on top of you? That's fun and all that. I want to see the best golfers in the world cry.
I want to see him have to work.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is that the technology's gotten so good and the athleticism across the board has gotten so good that you can play these tournaments where a dude's whole purpose on the tee is just to swing it as hard as he can and get the ball as far as he can and figure it out when he gets there.
Yeah.
This is a course where figuring out when you get there is not a good option.
No, you have to have a plan, and it's very Mike Tyson-y in the sense of everyone's got a plan until they get hit, and that one ball ends up in that second cut, or you end up in a bunker, or you end up on the wrong side of a green, and you watch these putts. We saw one guy earlier hit about a 90-footer.
Yeah.
It was just bonkers. But, I mean, we talk about the stimp meter and how fast these greens are. It's not just that they're fast. The undulation of these greens is just nuts. And if you are 1 foot out of, like, what they have the overlay of, like, where everybody's hitting, it's kind of like a bullseye walked in kind of a deal.
Yeah.
If you are outside this circle, you have a 0% chance, basically, of scoring on this hole, saving whatsoever, unless you hit the miraculous 90-footer.
And just for references as to how fast these greens are, I mean, people always talk about Augusta being glassy and whatnot. The stimp meter, which was made to measure putt speed, was invented here at this course to be able to determine just how fast they were making it. And on top of that, I learned from Isaac yesterday that this is the only course on the U.S. Open circuit in which the USGA comes in and has to slow it down. All the other ones all around the U.S. that host this tournament, they speed them up because they want to make it harder for the golfers. They get there and go, God, this club's already really hard. We better make it a little easier.
And that was the thing is that they've taken down. If you've watched today, you'll notice that there's a distinct lack of trees.
Yeah.
They've taken a lot of trees out because they wanted it to be more open because of how difficult the course is, and they wanted guys to have the sight lines because of like where they were going to end up.
Well, let's take a look at the leaderboard because it's not the names that you would normally expect. Sitting atop, we mentioned JJ Spawn. He was 4 under. He's in the clubhouse. Sungjae Im is tied with him right now. He's only through 12. Tristan Lawrence and Matthew Pavone, as well as Rasmus Nygaard Peterson, are all tied for 3rd at 3 under par. None of these are household names. Continues with Siwoo Kim. People, I guess, maybe know Sam Burns. John Rahm is a person people certainly are familiar with. But you look at what some of the best golfers in the world did today. I mentioned Lowry +9. Justin Thomas is already 5 over, and he's only through 14. Rory was 4 over. Bryson was 3 over. Watch Bryson and Rory both have instances around the green trying to chip, and they couldn't get their ball from the rough to the short stuff. You want to talk about the great equalizer. The dudes who are going to be accurate this week are going to have the best chance, but it's also the way that it's caused problems for multiple people. Nobody's out of it yet either, at least if you haven't had a huge blow up.
No, and even like the par threes, like do we have the scoring yet for the par threes?
I don't. Let's see. I don't have the scoring yet for the par threes. What I do know is that one of the other things this course is offering is the longest par 3 in U.S. Open history,
ding, ding, ding.
The 289-yard par 3.
Yeah, and then I saw a clip of Bryson in his practice round. He's like, 289 on par 3. All right, let's go ahead and see how we do here. He hit a great tee shot in his practice round. He's like, okay, if I could just do that every time this weekend, that'd be great.
And Bryson's got so much length that he actually has some options there. I watched Colin Morikawa in his practice round go out and go, well, I guess it's driver.
He's like,
and he's a freaking pro. Par 3.
He's in the practice round, and he goes, am I the only one hitting driver off the tee here?
Yeah.
And it was just like,
and this is a top 10 in the world golfer.
Yeah, it's like, the challenges this golf course throws at everyone it's like that's to me what I love is I want to see. Look, don't get me wrong, on Sunday I want to see
you hope big names are in the mix.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I want that to happen, and you would think with the course being more difficult, that is going to allow the guys that can play well
best players should be able to kind of grind their way up the board a little bit, so to speak.
You might have a guy like a JJ Spawn who gets lucky, gets early in the day. Can he keep this going?
Yeah.
Because if he can, it's cool when you get the guy who's not expected to be there, doesn't just do it one day, does it 2 days, does it 3 days, and then going into Sunday.
It's the Pacers.
We get to see, does he have the medal?
Yeah.
Is he going to break?
Because he keeps showing us, and he keeps showing us, and he keeps showing us, but then when he's facing the big dog in Game 7, what does it look like?
Rory and Spieth and, everybody else, Scheffler, Schauffele, like whoever it is, they're right there behind you on Sunday, and you're going, oh, dear Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord. I got to do this. I got to do this. And that's when the one outlier is always fun to have in that final 4 groups.
Yeah, and we talk about how the average man would handle this course. Jason Sobel, who's a renowned golf writer, basically said if you were an 18 handicap, like a bogey golfer, you wouldn't bother coming out. It would be miserable. And there's the guys who do the Foreplay podcast on Barstool. Whether you take or leave Barstool, they get remarkable access to the golf.
They played the course.
They played all 18 holes.
Yeah.
And all 3 of those guys are between 10 and 15 handicaps. And there's one of them, I think, shot a 96.
Yeah.
And then it was like 106, 108 or something like I may
which
be
is,
getting
which is
great.
They played well considering what they are.
And they're not good, but they play all the time and have decent swings. They can navigate courses, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was an absolute nightmare. So clearly, it's not for the everyman. It's not even for some of the pro golfers, as there have been some massive struggles out there. But I, like you, like seeing the challenge. It's much different than most of the other majors as far as what the final winning score is going to look like. Right now on today, the low score, 4 under par. Be interested to see what that score looks like and whether they try to make it tougher or whether the weather makes it tougher throughout the weekend. Going to wrap things up here on the show. Coming up next, should this better cash out with the Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final coming tonight? And I'm doing a thing this weekend. We'll talk about it. Danny and Friends, 1080 The Fan.
Hello.
Well, since I missed it last time around, what's better than one promo but two? We're talking golf. Want to remind you there are still spots available for the 11th annual Fan Golf Classic presented by your local Toyota dealers. The afternoon round is full, but you can still tee it up with us in the morning rounds. Going to be presented by Henderson and Daughter Windows and Doors, as well as Philbrook Law and Accident Injury Lawyers. We'll have Matt's Barbecue out there with some food and guaranteed good times. That course always in pristine shape. Thankfully, the rough not as long as out at Oakmont.
But the rough is very well kept out there. It's
really well. That's what I'm saying. It's
very
far
green.
more favorable and kind to the golfer.
It is, but it is a thicker rough there. I do like that about it out there. It's thick and luscious.
And the course has character. There are certain holes you have to play them a certain way to be successful on them. And even though my game as a golfer isn't super tight, I like the holes where you have to think about how you're going to get from tee to green.
I mean, at Langdon, obviously, with the hole, with all the hosts will be spending the time at the 6th hole. At one of these points in time, like I would love to see them in the backdrop to set up like a big poster of the Happy Gilmore clown. Because
I like that.
That hole is a clown hole. Like it is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's just it's a par 3. It's just a big mound for a green.
It's a nipple. I mean, it's small and it's round on all sides. And unless you land right on top, you're rolling off.
And watching people on either side of the green hit back and forth over it.
That could be agonizing.
It happens every single time.
It's happened to me.
Oh, you just watch it back and forth and back and forth, and you're like, oh boy, this is it's not going to be good for the handicap.
We do get Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight in Florida between the Panthers and the Oilers. And I know that we're not necessarily a big puck podcast. Game 3 was a bludgeoning by the Panthers. 7-1, I think, was the final.
They just poured it on.
And then everybody was fighting by the end of the game. It looked like Slapshot out there. Two dudes went like toe-to-toe for over 90 seconds. It was really good theater despite being a blowout. But the thing that keeps popping up in my timeline is this one bettor who has a $13 bet on 5 different league champions. He's got 3 in the bag already. He got the LA Dodgers, he got the New York Liberty, and he got the Philadelphia Eagles. So he's already got some work done.
What was the plus payout on this?
So let's see, it's plus without commas, I can't even tell you. Plus 2082680. Basically, his $13 million was going to pay over $250,000 of all of these hit. His $13. Did I say $13 million? No, his $13 paying over $250,000. The payout would have been $270,000 plus. So going into game before either the Oilers or the Thunder,
is that Monday?
So he is on, and I feel like I neglected to say that. Yeah. He's on the Oilers and he's on the Thunder.
Yes.
Those are the last 2 that he needs, and he's got 3 in the bag. Going into Game 1 of both, when neither series had started yet, he had a $106,000 offer on the table. I would agree. Yeah. But then hockey was the first one to go off, and the one that, just from a betting standpoint, you would have been least confident about winning between those two would be the Oilers, and the Oilers win Game 1. And so now that goes up. It goes up to 126. So they add an extra 20,000 because the Oilers now 1 game closer to getting it. But then the Pacers take Game 1, and so his Thunder ticket slips back a little bit, and it's back into the $100,000 range. Well, then the Panthers even the series. The Panthers get another one. Now the Thunder have dropped another one. So both of the teams he needs are facing a 2-1 deficit. His offer that was up to $126,000 now down to $60,000.
Take it.
You got to cash out at some point, right? He keeps saying
it's a $13 ticket.
Yeah, and he keeps saying, I'm going for the 270. I'm going for the 270. Not at this pace, you're not.
No.
So, and I don't even want to say cut your losses. Cut your winnings. Just get out of there.
The second it hit six figures, I'm out.
Yeah, should have been.
I'm out.
Or I can even see a world where maybe you're trying to hedge against it. You're like, you're trying to find some way to thread the needle. But this is a kid who is posting his stuff on TikTok. He attended the last hockey game in Florida and watched the opposite result if he needed, with the Oilers getting absolutely smacked.
I would want no part of that.
Yeah. And so he's updating stuff. You can find him on Twitter. I mean, the ticket is with DraftKings. So they are posting his updates and TikToks all the time for coverage. But it's pretty fascinating to see what happens. I hope for his sake he cashes out, but he also seems cocky, so he probably won't. And if he doesn't, then he deserves it.
There was another ticket that was like this that had a bunch of title winners. That the ticket was from like August of last year, and it was around that amount. I think it ended up being like a $50 ticket. But I remember that this guy ended up cashing out. I want to say it was like $360 something or $370 that he cashed out.
Oh,
on.
beauty. Beauty.
But I think he had like 4 of the 5 title winners, and because he put $50 on it, it juiced the living hell out of it. And it was one of those things where it's like, with hindsight, it's like, yeah, those title picks are pretty spot on. Well, but it's like when you're making that play in August, though, it's very different.
Yeah, and the other thing too is there's different schools of thought. There's still some people that say you still only stand to lose $13. Go for it. But like the offer's there, the money's there if you just say yes.
Look, I mean, anytime if you ever have one of those opportunities, like I've made some pretty sizable bets in my lifetime for me, but I never had any like cash out options because they were always single bets. It was always, you know, to win X.
Sure.
The only long scope bet I ever made, I mentioned this God knows how many times, was the 2015 Blazers. The total was 26.5. I took the over on that, but that thing hit, I want to say, in like January.
Nice.
So it was like, yeah, we're good here. When I'm in Vegas next year for Summer League, I'll go ahead and cash that thing out.
Last year, me and Suk were on the Blazers season under, which hit very early. So that worked fine. I'm doing a triathlon this weekend for the first time. Part of my weight loss journey, decided that was something I was going to try to conquer. The hay is in the barn. The training's done. Any tips from you?
Nipple tape.
Nipple tape. Yeah, you know what? Dusty talked to me about a anti-chafing thing called Body Glide. That, I don't know if I'm going to get into that.
Oh, you will if you don't.
I got to make it about 2.5 hours.
A bare minimum goal bond, brother.
Okay. Well, I'll come with reinforcements. Want to thank Danny for having me in here in this chair today. Thank all of you for listening. Thanks to Schultze for doing all the heavy lifting for us. For prime time coming up next, 4 hours of power, 3 to 7, from their mouths to your ears. I've been Ryan Buckley. Thank you for listening to Danny and Friends.
Take care. Talk soon. Bye.
This is